Welcome back to Memes and Markets. Keith, how are you, man?
Today is the best day of my life, Ben. How you feeling?
Today's the best day of my life, too. We got an awesome guest here with us and everyone here within the chat. So I'll throw it over to you, Keith, to introduce our guest, and I'll say what up to everyone in the chat.
Fantastic. What up, chat? What up? We've got Andy Shectman with us from Miles Franklin Media, Miles Franklin Precious Metals as well. As I've hyped this up a little bit on my personal channel, one of the top speakers in the space around gold, as well as digital currency as well, and really getting a grasp of where all of those things kind of come together. So, Andy, I found your content a few years ago, and I remember I was watching like some random gold clipping channel. They take your excerpts and put your voice over it and put the visuals up. And I was there to watch gold content, but then I heard you mention Project Enbridge. And I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, this guy knows what's going on in the world. And so ever since then, I was like, okay, let me really tap in with what you're talking about. And this is an awesome opportunity to actually chat with you live. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this, man. How you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. A lot of people don't understand that. They think I do nothing but videos 24/7 because there's like 50 or 60,000 videos out there of me. I've only done about 6,000 in the last 6+ years. And that's what they do. They do it to monetize their channels and these random clips. And it's interesting. I get people saying that all the day. Like, how do you sleep? I mean, do you do anything? I'm like, well, yeah, but anyways, it's good to be here. I appreciate it.
Super cool, man. Super cool. So, yes, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the war that's going on in Iran, the impact that that's having on potentially oil prices, potentially gold, and why gold in general is so important to you and why you've built your career around that. And also to people who are listening, how to protect themselves throughout this financial reset that we may be going through. We'll talk about the BIS, we'll talk about CBDC, stablecoins, the Genius Act, all of that. But before we dive into that, I want to take a step back and really come to this conversation as if someone is just starting to pay attention to what's happening in the world of digital currency. And because of that, really needs to look at like, what is money in general? And so, Andy, I wanted to start off with a super simple, easy question for you. I hope you're ready this morning. What is money to you?
Money to me is gold and silver. JP Morgan said it. Gold is money, everything else is credit. Currency, dollars, are a means of exchange. And you can pick, you go back as far as you want. Go back, 30 years, 25 years. You pick any asset you can think of, measure it in dollar terms, things have gotten much more expensive. Measure it in gold terms, things have gotten wickedly less expensive. And this is an important concept to understand, is that one of the things that money should do is provide a function of savings and of value. The dollar has really the savings and value qualities of a melting ice cube. Let me show you what I mean. Let's just go back. I've done this example several times, but we can go back further, go back or come closer. We can choose other assets, but I'll give it to you this way. In 2005, the price of a house in the United States was roughly $240,000. That's according to that the all the information you find out there. The average price would have been right around $245,000. Gold was $450 an ounce. So you decide, should I? My dad left me 510 ounces of gold. If you divide that in, it's about 510 ounces. Should we pay off the house? Have no mortgage? Because gold doesn't pay any interest, right? It's just a rock. It doesn't do anything. The conventional wisdom back then would have been, yeah, sell that gold, buy your house, have no debt, etc. And I would have been okay with that conventional wisdom, I guess, if I were looking at it from the mainstream perspective. But instead, you thought you'd buck the trend. No, I'm going to stick it under my mattress. I'm not going to earn anything but dust for 21 years, where we are today, going on 22 years. And the outcome is kind of interesting. Your house doubled in dollar terms, right? It's now $500,000. Good investment. You did well. You've got a few years left on your mortgage. And that gold that you forgot about that was under your mattress earning nothing but dust, even with the little bit of a pullback we see right now, would buy you 5 houses. Almost, before this pullback, 5 houses fully furnished. My point is that in any asset that you can think of, measure it in gold terms, and you will find that the prices are massively depreciating or going down. Prices are falling in relation to gold, which has retained purchasing power. Measure it in dollar terms, everything's going up as the dollar is losing value. What gold is, the reason I call it money, is that it has a very, very, very interesting way of retaining its purchasing power through time. We can go back to 1900. Go back to 1900, where prior to 1933 in the United States, gold was money, as it should be. The $20 gold piece is nearly 1 ounce of gold, just a hair under 1 ounce of gold, but that was money. And everyone carried it around. 20s would have been a big one. Most people would have carried much smaller gold coins, $1, $2.50, $4, $3, $5, whatever. They had a whole bunch of gold coins back then, and that was money. So in 1900, $20 or one $20 gold piece would have bought you a finely tailored men's suit, shoes, tie, overcoat, hat, you name it, the whole thing. Today, $20 won't even buy a tie or a couple pairs of shoelaces. But that same ounce of gold will buy you the exact same thing that it bought you back then. You go through time, and you will find that what gold does is retain purchasing power, and in many cases accentuate it, like we've seen over the past 20, 30 years when measured in dollar terms. And so to me, what money is gold and silver. What currency are the bills in your wallet that in the year 3000 will be hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian as an example of what used to be money, where gold and silver will still be immutable wealth that has outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, every pandemic, everything. And maybe the most illuminating thing to me, regardless of all of the gyrations we're seeing right now, which people want us to believe, I guess, are big traders rushing to liquidity. I have another viewpoint on it, but
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they want us to believe that gold and silver, everyone's rushing to liquidity and throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But what I've seen over the past 16 months, well, really over the past several years, starting with the central banks, but over the last 16 months here in the United States, you've had record deliveries coming into the COMEX market. But no one's ever seen anything like it before. These are the most well-informed traders on the planet. Forget about the well-funded central banks, and now whoever the hell is standing for delivery every single month for billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars worth of gold and silver. They don't do things just for the hell of it. And at that level, when you're talking 9 figures a month.
Can you actually break down this physical delivery situation for someone who has no idea about gold and markets and how that works? Can you kind of give us an idea of what that looks like?
Yeah, and I want you to keep in mind this as I break that down. Like they asked Wayne Gretzky, how were you such a good hockey player? And he said, I never skated to the puck. I skated to where the puck was going. And I would argue that the people who are doing this are doing exactly that. So the COMEX market, if you ever saw the movie Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy, great movie, that is the COMEX market where commodities are traded. The only market in the world that sets the prices for gold and silver. So everything else is trading and accumulation and whatnot, but the only place that the price is set globally for gold and silver is on the COMEX market. Now, the COMEX was designed for all sorts of commodities, not as a hub of speculation. It was designed to offset risk. Myself, as a company who will typically have 2 million ounces or more of silver in our warehouse, if I have 2 million ounces of silver and the price, like today, fell by $6 or $7, well, you might as well close the doors. I'm out 12 million bucks, 14 million bucks. You're done. So instead, we hedge, meaning if this is the warehouse silver, I'll sell the exact same amount on COMEX. So today, my warehouse silver went like this, but my short position on COMEX went like this. So I am market neutral. A farmer who plants a field of wheat in April thinks, man, I got to deal with the growing season, the pests, the bugs. I got to deal with, it could be good, could be bad. I don't know, and I got bills to pay. So, man, it's very frustrating not knowing what it's going to be like in September. Well, the baker says, man, I need wheat in September, man, and it's getting tough to get wheat. And well, you know what? Let's meet in the middle. I'll buy your production at this price. You'll sell me your production at that price, and we're both happy. I'm happy paying this. You're happy selling it. The farmer then can go about his way during the growing season and know that no matter what happens, his production is sold at a price that he was happy with, and the same goes for the baker. That is what the COMEX is designed for, to offset risk. It's turned into much more than that. When you look at all of the contracts that are traded on COMEX, they have one feature that for my career, no one ever exploited. I've been doing this for 36 years. Nobody ever exploited. Less than 1% of contracts ever stood for delivery, which simply means that you can typically, when a contract is getting close to expiration, you can roll it forward to the next delivery month. You can cash settle, give me the money, or you can stand for delivery, and which no one ever did. What is changing things right now with less than 1% ever standing for delivery is all of a sudden for the last couple of years, and really for the last 16 months since Trump won the election, we are seeing the most well-funded and well-informed traders that are skating to where the puck is going, standing for delivery in billions and billions and billions and billions every single month, and no one's talking about it. This is what the mainstream media has missed.
That means that the short seller is having to actually provide the actual physical underlying thing, correct? And this is all happening in the futures market.
Correct. And normally, a lot of these short sellers are doing what's called naked shorting, which means they don't have the metal behind them. They just figure, well, we got enough cash. We're a big bank. We'll just keep overwhelming the market with cash short positions, driving down the paper price. So much pain that people finally, on the other side, get margin called so many times. They're like, we're out. We can't keep doing this. What do I mean by margin called? Margin called meaning if you are going to trade futures, you have to have a margin account. Now, that's one reason that the price got slammed in January the way that we saw, to flush out the speculators, because let's say December 1st, I needed $15,000 roughly in my margin account, which is a cash collateral account, doing nothing, just sitting there, to hedge 5,000 ounces of silver, which is a contract. One contract are 5 1,000-ounce silver bars. So in order to hedge that contract, I needed to have 15,000 in my margin account. Back then, silver was about $60. $15,000 controlled 300,000 in silver. So you had all these speculators as silver kept going up and up and up and up and up, jumping in and buying contracts. And all they needed to do was have money in their margin account. So let's say you had 110,000 in your margin account, that would allow you to control 7 contracts. 7 contracts at $300,000 a piece, you're controlling, a couple $1 million worth of silver with just having money in your margin account. Price kept going up. You're partying, you're happy, you're going out and, on Friday night and look at the money we're making. Let's go to a nice dinner. Everything's great, right? By the day after Christmas, on the second margin hike, they had raised it to about 35% increase to 18,500. By January, when the market collapsed, they had raised margin requirements to about $54,000, thereabouts. So 300% increase in the cost, over 300% increase in the cost of maintaining a margin account, created havoc, where all of these sellers are like, man, like you get 24 hours. When it went from 15 to 18,000 or 18.5, you got 24 hours to post that extra margin on every contract, or you get liquidated like that. And so, okay, fine, we can post an extra 3,500 per contract on those 7 contracts. You got to post another $25,000. Okay, fine, we can do that. And then it keeps going higher and higher and higher and higher until finally people get squeezed. And when you sell those contracts, you have to sell which drives down the price, which begets more selling, which begets more selling, which begets more selling as the price falls, and everyone is long on margin and the price is falling, they're getting margin called again, not only for the falling price, but also for the increase in margins. It was done specifically to shake the weak hands from the trees. But what was interesting about all of that, record deliveries. Now, the people that are standing for delivery, they don't care. They're not using margin. They're just going in with cash. And that's the interesting thing here, is that there's an awful lot of games that are being played, I guess you could say, on the COMEX market that is trying to synthetically create let's just say synthetically trying to create a narrative. And that is to shake the weak hands out of the trees, which we're going higher and higher and higher and making all this money and standing for delivery. The exchange didn't like that. The big banks that were on the other side of that didn't like that. Now, this is a game that is changing because of the deliveries. You can manipulate a paper market indefinitely if no one stands for delivery, if you have enough money. But what has changed the game is the most well-informed traders across the globe have been doing the same thing for going on 3-4 years now, and that would be largely the countries in the BRICS. You mentioned Enbridge. That's the BRICS cross-border payment system. But they've been standing for delivery, not just in the United States, but in London, which is bleeding dry, literally being bled dry, their metal. Not too long ago, the LBMA recently, I haven't looked for a few weeks yet, but last I looked, they had 2 billion ounces in paper contracts that could stand for delivery against 140 million ounces of silver backing the bars. So 140 million backing those contracts, 2 billion ounces in contracts that are, a lot of them stand for delivery. What could possibly go wrong? It's getting to a point where the paper market has been, I guess you could say, it's caught between standing for delivery and not enough metal behind the bars. And we're seeing, I think, a desperate attempt by the exchanges to drive down the prices to get the banks that are off sides with big short positions back on sides. In other words, they drive down the price like this by dumping paper metal onto the market so they can cover their short positions, because this is an existential threat if you're not short. It's interesting too, because there was a report by the Economic Times that came out recently and said that the banks in the United States are largely net long. They flip-flopped, leaving the banks in Europe and in Canada exposed to these short positions. But net long doesn't mean long. It means you could have 11 long and 10 short, you're net long. But as the world is moving away from trusting the dollar, from trusting treasuries, this is a real threat. And when you see all the countries in and of themselves standing for delivery, and now whoever the hell is doing it in the United States, I think there's reason to be nervous if you were one of these big banks that were wickedly short for a long time. They're now trying to get on sides, and the only way to do that is to drive the price down in a very, I think, aggressive manner so that they can cover those shorts that are way down here, let the price move up, and they are out of the short position. Whoever is on the other side of that, who is now taking the short, and that's probably going to be the banks in Europe and Canada, are facing a very, very dangerous dilemma as prices begin to move in the other direction and as more and more entities stand for delivery against their naked positions. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Andy, I wanted to zoom in on the market today, and kind of like over the past couple of weeks, obviously we've had this war in Iran starting. And for someone out there who's trying to figure out, what do I do about this? Like, you've had this massive run up in the price of gold. You've seen oil prices starting to skyrocket. It's like, what do I do? Am I supposed to be like trying to buy physical like food? Am I supposed to be like stocking up on water? Um, should I just be longing USO, the US oil fund futures, or excuse me, the spot ETF for the US oil fund? Um, and why is gold retracing throughout some of this? You said people are kind of saying that this is about people trying to find liquidity in the markets. Can you explain what that really means, or what exactly that's looking like? I saw something about the UAE having to like sell gold in order to cover the fact that oil is not being produced the same? Or what do you see happening in the markets right now?
Well, I think that what is happening right now, my dear friend, dear departed friend of mine, his name was Jim Sinclair. He used to say that what it was called MOPE, Management of Perception Economics. The last thing that the administration wants to see is gold going to the moon in the face of what's happening in the Middle East. And I think that's an interesting assessment. Whether or not I fully believe it, I think it is interesting in the respect that I've been doing this since the first Gulf War, and every single time we go to war or there's a reason that gold should move higher, we see the opposite. Now, um, I guess the conventional way of looking at this, and again, it's really important to understand that there are no free markets anymore. Let's just get that out there, okay? There's just manipulations in every market, Forex, equities, metals, commodities, across the board. These markets are controlled, and this is part of the problem. The West has dominated the ability to set prices in all these markets, and the world is pushing back against that. Right now, a lot of people are confused by gold because they think it should be trading the chaos. And I understand that. I think it should too. That is conventional thinking. That is what would be logical. That would be intuitive. But gold is not really trading the chaos. At least we're supposed to believe that. It's trading the likely policy response to the chaos. I guess you could say if I were mainstream, if I were sitting on Fox News, I'd say here's the sequence. Let's see. War pushes oil higher. Okay, check. Higher oil prices pushes inflation fears higher. That makes sense. Check. Higher inflation makes central banks less likely to cut rates. What do we have yesterday and today? The FOMC meeting, right? And Trump wanted to lower rates. But if you have higher inflation, well, can you really cut rates into higher inflation? So it says no. The answer would be no. You'd have higher rates along with the strong dollar, right? And it's interesting. You have a strong dollar and you have high oil. Normally, one of these two should be, one of them is lying, right? You have a strong dollar and strong oil, and normally they don't move together. They would move opposite of one another. So even as the world looks more dangerous, I guess gold can still fall. Now I know that feels backwards, but it only looks backwards if you think gold responds to the headlines first. It often responds, in this case, at least they want us to believe that, to interest rates and monetary policy first. I guess the important point is that the short-term dynamic, not necessarily a long-term verdict, is that they are going to knock it down because they feel that Fed won't lower rates, and they're even though that they didn't raise them, they're just keeping them steady. We're supposed to believe that that's bullish for treasuries, which is absurd if you think about it. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, you look at a treasury market globally, the world is selling treasuries. When we confiscated Russians' treasuries, $4 billion plus worth, to me that was the same thing as defaulting. Now, I'm not making any comment on war, you guys, because it's never a good thing to do on either side. But let's just look at the facts. Why would countries not want to hold our treasuries anymore? Well, number one, they look at us as being, first of all, fiscally irresponsible. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. We have 38 trillion in debt on top of 170 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government military pensions, those are all off balance sheet, which is absurd in and of itself. We're massively broke, right? And our irresponsibility in terms of our fiscal policy is off the charts. We bring in Doge, they find 2 trillion that they could cut off the ledger, and we say, how about a couple $100 billion, which amounts to about 35 hours of trading or spending by the U.S. government. If we can't get our balance sheet in order when there's actual, I guess you could say bipartisan, at least at first, bipartisan support to do so until it got to Congress and they couldn't chop anything because that's what keeps them elected. It goes to show we'll never balance our balance sheet. We'll never normalize it. We will always choose inflation over austerity, and they continue to do so in a very irresponsible manner, creating about $1 trillion in debt every 100, 150 days. That's just not sustainable. So number one, why the hell would they want to buy our treasuries or hold our dollars when we're inflating it away, choosing inflation over austerity, as we always have? Number two, we confiscated Russian Forex reserves, kicked them out of SWIFT, confiscated their treasuries, and gave it to the Ukraine largely in the form of weapons, a country they were in a war with. Now let's contrast that. You know, if you were accused of killing your girlfriend or your wife, and you go to an attorney and you're like, I didn't do this, man. I didn't do this. Well, that's all I need to hear, that the attorney says. I don't even want to, I'm not going to read the file, what the state has against you, because it doesn't matter. I just want to know what you think. Well, is that a good attorney to go to, or do you want to look at the other side? Now let's look at the other side, right? I'm a patriot, man. This country's done more for me than anyone would have ever dreamt of, myself included. I thank God every day I was born here. Please do not misinterpret what I am saying. But in order to look at the full story, you got to look at the other side. The other side says, well, these guys came into Iraq 22 years ago. They're still freaking there, right? They went there looking for weapons of mass destruction. Guess what? We didn't find any. But we destroyed your country, toppled your regime, created chaos, born ISIS out of the whole thing.
Crazy.
You know, and we're still there. But it's okay, because we're the world reserve currency. We are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. You doing what you think is right, Putin. Well, that's not the case. We're going to kick you out of SWIFT, sanction all your oil, and you don't get to keep the bonds. We're going to keep it. We're going to give it to the Ukraine in the form of weapons. Now, the world looks at that as being very hypocritical. And so what is good for the goose isn't for the gander. So when you talk about countries wanting to hold our treasuries, to accumulate our treasures that are being inflated away, and if you're on the wrong side of the aisle, well, they may come and take it. So when you talk about the market saying, well, you know, rates may go higher, well, really, to what end? That indebtedness, how do you pay off a debt when rates keep going higher and higher and higher? In fact, it creates such a massive burden, the whole thing collapses. What happens to stocks, bonds, and real estate when rates go higher? Well, they're all inversely correlated to it. What's your house worth at 3% mortgage, like we saw a few years ago? What's it worth at a 6%? What's it worth at a 9%? Well, the housing market collapses. What about the bond market? Well, bonds are inversely correlated to interest rates. Bond prices are. Rates go up, bond prices go down. Rates go down, bond prices go up. Well, rates go up, bond market collapses. Real estate market collapses. How about the stock market? Well, inversely correlated to a spike in interest rates. The stock market collapses. How about the banks? We saw what happened when rates went above 5%. Silicon Valley Signature, boom, boom, gone. What happens if rates spike? Banks collapse. How about the insurance companies? Oh, they're all loaded with treasuries too. Rates spike. The government can't pay off its debt unless it monetizes it and prints more money to buy the bonds. That's Weimar Republic, Germany. Stock market, bond market, real estate market. I mean, the whole thing collapses. This is the Klaus Schwab moment that he talked about. You'll own nothing and be happy. How do you reset the system? Let interest rates go to the moon. Everything breaks and resets, literally. So they can't let that happen. So what's their only path? Inflation. How do you pay for all of this stuff in an environment where we don't make anything, right? Where's our manufacturing base? We don't have any. How about the fact that Ray Dalio came out and said 60% of America has a literacy rate under the 6th grade. We're uneducated. We're broke. We don't make anything. And here comes AI just in time to kneecap the jobs. And so when you look at what's happening right now, you have to take a step back and remove the emotion. The emotion is something very, very persuasive. Fear is the greatest emotion of all. There is an entire school of investment theory called wave theory, Elliott wave, Contrarian wave. And the whole theory behind it is that the cumulative emotions of the herd move the market from, greed to FOMO to exuberance to, oh shit, panic, what's going on, fear, dump it all, sell it all, and then it goes back again. And that is, throughout history, you can see these waves and they have very, very identifiable patterns. But all I'm simply trying to say to you is this, that this is, as Jim Sinclair said, I believe it is MOPE. It is managing the perception. The last thing this government wants to see in the midst of this war that seems to be going not really the way that they had intended. is to see gold and silver going to the moon. Now we are told it's people selling what went up and what is very liquid to cover margin requirements, to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's the most liquid thing. That's what they want us to believe. And okay, fine. I don't believe that. I believe that's maybe some of it. I think that this is very, 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 I guess you could say it's just too coincidental for me. At the same time, for the past 16 straight months, the most well-informed traders on the globe are bringing, let me give you an example what I mean by standing for delivery. Let me give you the February numbers. So February, I'll give you February and March. February was a non-delivery month for silver. And January was a delivery month. March is a delivery month. May is a delivery month. You can still take delivery in the odd months. In February, it's one of the smallest deliveries we've seen in 16 months. Is about 25 million ounces came into COMEX. In other words, people who held those contracts said, no, I don't want to roll forward. No, I don't want to cash settle. I'd like to stand for delivery, please. Okay, 25 million ounces of silver plus was delivered from London or Switzerland or wherever it was into COMEX. Okay, delivered. Got it. And that's what at the time, $80, you're talking just under what, 1.7, $1.8 billion worth of silver came in. Okay, great. Now, inside of the COMEX market, I don't want to get too technical. There's two categories, right? There is registered, eligible. Miles Franklin has 8 Brinks facilities in North America that we store clients' metals in. And of those 8 facilities, one of them is in New York City. It's JFK Brinks. That is the only COMEX facility that we have metal in. I have one client alone with over 1 million ounces and 1,000-ounce silver bars in our storage program. Those are called eligible. Eligible means they're stored in a Brinks facility or a COMEX facility. They're eligible to be moved to registered, but they're not. They're in strong hands and they're not for sale. So when metal is delivered into COMEX, largely it goes to eligible. Registered are the bars that back the contracts that could stand for delivery, okay? So we had all of this metal come in, 25 million ounces, and normally it would go into eligible. But that same month, we saw 36, almost 37, actually 38, almost 39 million ounces leave COMEX. Now let's talk about that for a second. We had 160% of what deliveries could explain alone, stand for delivery, leave the market. Didn't go to eligible, it left. Now, if a mint box of Silver Eagles, which is 500 ounces, weighs 42 pounds, ask yourself this question. Who in God's green earth took possession of almost 39 million ounces of silver? That's over 2 million pounds of silver. Where did it go? How many trucks did it take to load that out, and where the hell did it go? Now, do you think there's any coincidence that of all of these months, 16 straight months since Trump took office, all of these deliveries, every single month between roughly 30 and 70 million ounces, every month, 30 and 70 million, you're talking 4 million pounds of silver, every month have come into COMEX, and that's as unusual as 4 feet of snow in Death Valley in July. It's not a normal thing. Do you think there's any coincidence that he then said, by the way, 6 weeks ago, silver is now a critical mineral? And we are, by the way, we're going to do something called Project Vault, where the government's going to create a stockpile. And we're going to put price floors underneath the price of all strategic commodities to inspire domestic mining. My point is that big money, which knows the playbook, is skating to where the puck is going. And there is management in these markets. And for whatever reason, they're knocking it down to delink the rationale that most of us would have. There's nothing to see here, folks. Keep on walking. And this is something that I've seen over and over and over and over again my whole career. So yeah, I think that this is something that is very difficult for most people to grasp and understand, and the emotions of it freak everybody out. But I don't think we've seen anything yet. The bull market is not over, not even a little bit. But it is something that I think most people are a little emotional about right now, and rightfully so.
And just to clarify, Andy, the institutions and the central banks are skating to where the puck is going by taking physical delivery of the metals. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's not just that. I mean, it's all of the, let's look at the BRICS as an example, what they've been doing. Yeah, they're in the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, but there's a lot more in that. Of course, you have, Saudi Arabia that was admitted to BRICS, never fully accepted it, but yet they are one of the 5 members of Project Enbridge. They are literally integrated into the entire system quietly. The Shanghai metals market is expanding their vault system. The first one was just built and completed in Hong Kong. Why is that important? Because when gold leaves China, it has to leave through Hong Kong. The second one is under construction in all places. Saudi Arabia, they're going to build them through the entire Belt Road Initiative, which is Africa, Asia, South America. And so when you talk about how significant that is, it's massively significant because they will put these hubs all throughout the global south, and they will use gold delivery to settle imbalances. China has already made the digital yuan immediately convertible into gold without having to go to dollars first. So let's play that out. China buys oil from Saudi Arabia, trades it over 1 or 2 platforms, either Enbridge, which is operational, or SIPS, the cross interbank payment system, both of which are not compatible with SWIFT. Trades it instantly in 7 seconds instead of the time lag between using the SWIFT system and going to New York-based intermediary banks that take a couple of days, and at a 98% reduction in cost, and not the SWIFT interference. They trade digital yuan to Saudi for their oil. But Saudi says, I don't think I want the digital yuan. So it sends it back and immediately gets gold delivered in the Shanghai Metals Exchange out of Hong Kong. But now the next one's being built in their own backyard. In Saudi Arabia, they'll do it all around the Belt Road, and everyone will trade their local currencies and settle imbalances in gold. Don't believe me? Look at this one. China just signed up the countries in Southeast Asia. The acronym is ASEAN. They're all the major countries in Southeast Asia, which are already China's largest trading partner by far. They have 800 million people, twice the population of the United States. So they will be trading primarily outside the dollar. They'll trade with China in yuan and settle imbalances in gold. Now, the more countries do that, the less countries use the dollar to settle, chips away at the dollar settlement status. If you don't have the need to hold as many dollars as you once did, when all of these countries hold dollars, they put them into treasuries to get a yield on it, and they're very liquid. The buying of treasuries all of these years, which was part of the petrodollar deal, you sell oil in dollars, you take the residual, put it in treasuries. Well, that keeps interest rates low, that keeps our asset prices high, and that keeps the stuff we buy at Walmart cheap. It's been a good run, but all of a sudden that's going to change. And you will see countries no longer want to use dollars. And if they don't have as many dollars, they won't need to have as many treasuries, which pushes rates higher. And so that's bad. Why would it be bad? Because when you mess with Mother Nature, all of this can go back to one problem, and that is suppression of interest rates. Suppression of interest rates, which created distortions in asset prices and illusions in distortions in asset prices and misallocations of resources and capital that become illusionary. In other words, what is your house worth at a 3% mortgage versus a 10%? And if interest rates are low, well, maybe we can take on more debt. I'll buy the Escalade instead of the Tahoe, even though it's $18,000 more for 72 months of zero interest rate. I can do it. Or maybe I'll buy a bigger house because rates are low and I can do that. Or maybe if I'm a business owner, I'll take that 7-year lease on that big building, and I'll hire 18 more people and do the other division. And all of a sudden, holy crap, what happened to rates? And that's what's happening. And you are seeing, I think, the issue of what happens when rates normalize. They can't allow that to happen. And so you're seeing all sorts of manipulations to maintain the status quo, and it's not as easy for them to do anymore. And so I think that if I had to be honest and forget about the fact that I own a precious metals company, as God is my witness, I think that there are very few places I would put my money other than gold and silver because they have no counterparty risk. And the system as we see it globally, in my mind, is reintroducing and reintegrating gold and silver into the monetary system. The fact that it's all price set in US dollars here in the United States is the real issue. And the West is doing all they can to make everything say, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. The sky's not falling. The dollar's okay. Our indebtedness is okay. Don't worry. If gold were going to the moon, that would be a very bad sign right now. So I think a lot of this is management by the powers that be to create an illusion or create the reality that everything's okay. Don't worry about it. We're just fine, when in reality, things are a little tenuous right now on many levels.
So, Andy, as crypto people like Keith and I are, I think we forecasted the coming chaos, and that's really what attracted us so much to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. How do you see all of these things impacting Bitcoin? And then I'd also love to hear your personal thoughts, beliefs, and opinions on Bitcoin.
You know, I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
I've been doing this since I was 19 years old. I started the company with my dad when I was 19. I've been buying gold and silver every 2 weeks since then. That was the promise I made to my father when we started the company. We started on a wing and a prayer, by the way. You know, we come from nothing. We started in a one-room office the size of a closet before you guys were born in 1989, before the internet. There was no internet. It was so difficult you can't even imagine. To think I got to where I am, it blows my mind every single day. And what I did understand, what my father said to me, that the only rule or I'll fire you is that you won't make the same mistakes I made as a young man. You're going to buy something every 2 weeks, period. I don't care if it's one silver dime. You're going to buy something. All right, cool, Dad, I can do that. I've owned the company outright for 2 decades. I still talk to him every day, and he ain't going to fire me anymore, but it was the best gift I've ever been given in my life to understand the powers of compounding and what gold and silver are to me. Going back to the first question, it's wealth, right? It's wealth. It's been wealth going back to biblical times. Pharaohs and kings and queens and emperors never owned gold to get wealthy. They owned it because it was wealth. With that being said, I have a hard time when I can't hold something, right? I own a Bitcoin. I do, because I didn't want to look back at it someday and say, well, you're an idiot. Why didn't you at least have one? But I have really made a mission of trying to bring our communities together. I'm frequently on with Mark Moss, a good friend of mine, Natalie Burnell, Paul Barron, Swan, Bitcoin. I was on with, what's his name? I was on just the other day with, just the other day I was on
Kyle
with
Chassis.
Kyle
is who you're
Chase.
talking
Yeah,
about.
Kyle, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've tried forever to unite our two communities, because let's just, first of all, we see the world in very similar ways, right? We see the problems. You said this is what turned you on to Bitcoin. I agree with you, right? We see the world, and I think the dumbest thing in the world is that we're divisive with one another and argumentative with one another. We, I think, have more in common than people think. You know, before you guys were born, I doubt you ever remember these commercials. There was a commercial for Reese's peanut butter cups, and there was two people walking down the street looking like this. One had a piece of chocolate in his hand. The other guy had a can of peanut butter or a jar of peanut butter for whatever reason. And they bump into each other. You got your peanut butter in my chocolate. You got your chocolate in my peanut butter. And they each take a bite like, wow, that's great. It's better. My point is that we're better together, not only in understanding the world and macroeconomics and the reasons to own things that are not dollar denominated. Your entire portfolio, I believe, is stronger, 1,000% stronger. I think we both look at the world and go in through the same door. One goes this way, one goes that way. Once you're inside the door, one wants to make money, one wants to preserve money. I'll give you an analogy. When my kids were young, there was another couple that we would frequently travel with, and this guy was great. He's an all-American wrestler, and he loved to gamble. And wherever we end up, we go on trips together. He and I somehow mysteriously ended up at a casino when everyone was asleep. And every single time I would gamble with him, I'm sitting there. I mean, he would drink me under the table with beer because big wrestler, and he thought it was funny to try and get me drunk. And I'd be like, listen, I'm not too buzzed to see that every time I walk out of here with you, you have a pocket full of money. How the hell are you doing this? I'm sitting at the table with you, and I don't see you doing that. And what you don't see is that every time I win a hand, I put a chip in my pocket. So when I leave the casino, I'm guaranteed to have money. And that's the same analogy. And that is that, you know, taking profit from one area and moving it to the other side in 6,000-7,000-year-old wealth that the most well-funded and well-informed traders on the planet, from the central banks who've been buying it not hand over fist for 5 years to now the biggest money in the United States, who knows where the puck is going, not only buying it but standing for delivery, tells you there's something bigger here. So why do they have to be mutually exclusive of one another? Why can't we better our position, better our understanding of what's happening across the globe, have a more well-rounded portfolio by combining the two? And so while I don't understand cryptocurrency quite the way that you guys do, I understand it in theory. I own a little bit. I speak at the XRP convention, and I'm not this year, but I know that's kind of heresy to people with Bitcoin. But I've done that specifically to unite the communities, to say, listen, we all understand the same stuff. Stop fighting with one another. We're better off as a community, as a portfolio, as understanding historical prices and monetary events and the whole 9 yards. And so I think that I'm glad that Bitcoin came about so people would understand this is a bigger problem. It's just a different chosen vehicle. But my real feeling is that having some of both makes your portfolio a hell of a lot stronger. Truly, I do believe that.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. We preach that a lot too. I think there's so many ways to get to an end destination. And I think Bitcoin just appealed to a different group and it served its purpose. And I think it was a great marketing medium to deliver that message. You've stressed a bunch of times the difference between like having the physical asset and having something on paper saying that you can potentially access the physical asset. That seemingly, from an outsider, seems like it's getting more and more logistically difficult to actually have the physical silver. Does that ever come into the equation? Because it seems like there's an easier route to self-custody through Bitcoin than there would be through silver as things get more chaotic. Is that something you ever think about?
Well, let's just say there's some things I wish I could say publicly right now, but for legal reasons, NDAs, I can't. But I would just simply say that I understand what you're saying, and I am involved with initiatives to address that. There is something to be said for having a digital form of allocated metal that can be traded and collateralized and redeemed. That's the key to any form of digital gold or silver, is its redemption. See, if it were me, I would focus first and foremost on the redemption and then go backwards. Because for the gold bug or the person who understands precious metals, it's already a situation of lack of trust. They don't trust anything or institutions. The one thing that you can say about, you say the same thing about Bitcoin if you hold it in your possession, is that having an asset that is simultaneously no one else's liability is a big deal. And counterparty risk is a dirty word and will only get dirtier as institutions fail. And you look at The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb, which is something that all of your listeners should go to YouTube, download. You can go to his website, I think it's greattaking.com, and read his book for free. It's like 150 pages, or go to YouTube and he'll narrate it for an hour and blow your mind if you listen to the change in the Universal Commercial Code and what it really means about ownership. You look at any of these, these banks where they're the Dodd-Frank Act change things, and anything over the FDIC limit, you are an unsecured general creditor, i.e. last to be paid. And so when you talk about bail-in legislation, which is now law instead of bail-out legislation, all of these things center around custody, counterparty risk. And I think, there's a lot to be said for having it in your own possession. But the drawback to that, I mean, in my mind, it's not hard to take possession of physical silver, but it doesn't give you the liquidity or the collateral ability that it would if it were on chain. I get all of that. And so there's room for that. Maybe there's room for both, some silver hidden under your mattress and some on chain that would allow you the the ability to do those things that you're talking about. And I understand that is where the market is moving. I get it. But I think there is a big premium. I'll put it to you this way. Your grandfather says to you, hey, for you and your sister, there's a couple boxes in my basement. And when I'm gone, go get it. Not anyone on the planet knows it exists, and it's yours. And, having something outside the system, outside the matrix, you look at the Genius Act, you look at the fact that we are moving towards a digital money system. You look at President Trump with the digital ID and moving it because of voter fraud or the perception of vote. The Democrats don't want to. You don't have to have an ID to vote, but you need an ID to get into the Democratic National Convention. Go think about that one for a moment. So, I mean, for anyone to think it's stupid to have an ID to vote it's ridiculous. You need an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes or go to R-rated movie if you're 16 but you don't need one to vote. All right. Well, that's what they want us to think to usher in, and I agree with it. Don't know how I feel about the digital ID, but you bring in the digital ID and digital money, which is where they're going with the Genius Act, which will get rid of checks and wires. It will all be, bang on a blockchain behind stablecoins. Well, is that the foray into the digital surveillance system? Bet your ass it is. And well, we don't want CBDCs. Okay, fine. But we'll do stablecoins. Guess where the plumbing of the stablecoin goes in and out of? The Treasury. They will control the on-ramp and the off-ramp. And when you marry digital ID with digital money, you're not too far away from that Orwellian Big Brother type of deal where we can, the Clarity Act, which came out, it did not say anything about programmability. And that's the thing that bothers a lot of people, because the stablecoins already have three things that, are already kind of a entry into that environment. They have KYC. Who are you? Know your client. Who are you? KYC. AML, anti-money laundering. Where'd you get your money? I know you, and I know where you got your money now, but how about KYT? What are you buying? Know your transaction. They have KYC, KYT, AML. Who are you? Where'd you get your money and what you're buying? It's already limiting your privacy. And when you have the on-ramp and the off-ramp going in and out of the Treasury, it becomes a little bit more concerning. And add into it the digital ID. Look at the patents that Bill Gates and Visa and what they have on these digital IDs. It's very, very frightening. Ultimately, now we're not there yet, but could it get to that point? Sure. And this is the first step into it. So I think having stuff outside of the system is crucial. I do. And 50% of marriages fail. I'm not saying lie or hide anything from your wife, but if you got a couple of kids and you give them each a box of gold and say, don't tell your spouse about this until you know for sure this is going to last, because that's money that nobody needs to know about. I'm just saying, giving you examples, and I'm not saying that everyone has to do that, but that's the way you have to think about having an asset like gold or silver or crypto outside of the system in your own possession, because counterparty risk, surveillance, and things you don't think about today that could happen tomorrow are real. So having that kind of wealth with no one knowing about it is, in my mind, valuable.
Most certainly. And back to the conversation around like the infighting between the crypto people and the gold people, and like all of that has been fascinating to me, because you'll listen to some of the biggest and brightest minds in the gold space, and Andy, the qualms that I have is they're not paying attention to this conversation. They're not paying attention to stable coins, Clarity Act, CBDC, and what that actually means, and how that could also be an opportunity in some ways as well. So I wanted to ask you, in the situation of, let's imagine digital surveillance state is 100% happening. For sure, you're going to say have gold, have silver outside of that system. Some people fear a situation like Executive Order 6102 from FDR and like the confiscation of gold or a physical asset of some sort.
Yep.
How do you think about that? And then how do you think about, if for sure we're going into a digital surveillance state, what else would you do to try and protect yourself or to profit even from a scenario like that?
See, I mean, I love a guy like you, man. You're smart, you're well-rounded. To me, intelligence and smart are different. You can be both. Intelligence, some people are very intelligent. They learn more and more about less and less till they know everything about nothing. And smart means you're willing to listen to another argument. You're willing to be open-minded and say, hey, I like that idea. Yeah, I admire the way that you framed these questions. And I would say that Roosevelt's first act in office of confiscating gold, first of all, the United States was very patriotic back then. You could argue not so much anymore. Everyone owned gold and silver back then. No one owns it now. Less than 1% of the public has any exposure to gold and silver. So, you know, the people who do are the pimple on the elephant's ass. And would it be, would the backlash globally when China has, you know, ads on the side of buses? You go into a strip mall, I mean, to a mall in China, 90% of the stores are buy gold. They are prodding their citizens to own it. It is, you can buy it all over the world, especially in the global south. And in the center of free trade, and the world reserve currency tries to activate eminent domain and take gold from what is just a tiny, tiny percentage of the public, the backlash to me is far, far greater than the take would be. But how about this? You have two funds, SLV, the largest stockpile of silver on the planet, that is administered by JP Morgan, who is also the primary custodian of GLD, one of the largest stockpiles of gold on the planet, both of which are dual custody with BlackRock. And JP Morgan 3 years ago paid the largest fine the Justice Department ever handed out for manipulating the metals market of $920 million. So in their infinite wisdom, they're still allowed to control the largest stockpile of silver in the world. And if you go back and watch a video, by the way, Bart Chilton, Chilton, he was the head of the CFTC, the Commodity Future Trading Commission, and he did one with Andrew Maguire and one with Chris Marcus of Arcadia Economics. In both cases, he admitted a lot of the things that I talk about, and then he died a week later. He said, you know, largely Bear Stearns failed because silver went to $21. They had the largest short position on the planet. And JP Morgan took it over. Jamie Dimon was called in and took it over. And he said that it would have been Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke said, Jamie, we need you to take the short position. Bear Stearns just collapsed about it. Okay, guys, I will, but JP will be in violation of position limits. To have too many shorts. Well, that's okay. It's okay. Get your house in order. We'll give you 90 days and you're all good. At the end of 90 days, Bart Chilton went into his supervisors, which would have been the Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson. Not only did they violate our agreement, they've increased their position. Instead of shortened it, they're in violation of antitrust law. They need to be prosecuted. Bart Chilton says on both of these podcasts, I was told to back down, Bart. It's a political decision. He died a week later. Now, it could have been a man who had cancer, who was clearing his conscience. I'm not saying that JP Morgan had him killed. Please believe me, that's not what I'm saying, but there was coincidence and timing. A lot of people question. I tell you this because when you realize that the fox guarding the hen house, who paid the largest fine the Justice Department ever handed out for manipulating markets, still allowed to be the custodian, wouldn't it be easier on a Friday night? And by the way, in the prospectus of those accounts, you and I are not allowed to take possession of the metal. Only those that fund a basket. In gold and GLD, it's 100,000, in both, 100,000 shares minimum. You're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. The commercial banks who funded it can take the metal in and out. We can't. Friday night, you got $1 million in each account, GLD and SLV. Closed, and you have $2 million in your money market Monday morning, and the government looks, what'd we do? We didn't break any laws or infringe any civil liberties. The prospectus tells us we can do this. People still have the money that they had. We didn't confiscate their money. And you can go buy physical metal in this country. It would allow them to have their cake and eat it too overnight instantly without going door to door, you know, to the tiny, tiny pin drop worth of people that actually own it. And most of which, you know, maybe have NRA stickers on their door. They don't believe in patriotism quite the way that we once did. I left Minnesota because of the idiocy that happened there. Look at what they've done with all the $16 billion surplus, squandered it, and the fraud and the waste, and, you know, the stuff they say about Tim Walz is beyond true. I left there 5 years ago and never looked back. And look at all the waste and the fraud that with your tax dollars. Well, no one trusts the government the way they once did, and they're not going to, in a patriotic fashion, turn over their gold. But we can take your GLD and SLV and the other ETFs, have massive stockpile of gold and silver in vaults with a pink bow wrapped around it, and look at the world and say, we didn't do anything illegal at all, and we still allow physical gold ownership. So I don't think they'll do that. If they do, we got much bigger problems at hand, and you can basically say checkmate to any of your freedoms and liberties for the rest of your lives. Let's hope it doesn't come to that in this great country, that they go that far astray.
Appreciate that, man. And then, so you said that you've actually gone to some of the XRP conferences.
Yeah.
So I want to chat about that a little bit, because we've got a huge XRP community here, and the way that I look at the asset in general is, to me, this is me hedging on the idea that CBDCs will become a thing, and that somehow, some way, maybe this XRP asset and some others will play a role in the evolution of that. But what is your take on the asset XRP? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, if it's going to take, it's going to be because the banks embrace it. I believed in it enough to own a little bit. I believed in it enough to, I'm very good friends with Versan and Vandel, Black Swan. I've spoken 2 years in a row in Las Vegas at the conference. It's an intriguing idea. It is. Do I know anything more about it that it will actually work? No, but I will willing to take a little bit of a gamble on it, and I own some, and it's done fairly well. And again, these are things that I think I've used a philosophy in my career that I've adopted from the Swiss, and it's really done well for me, like really well. And their philosophy is the shape of a pyramid. You're young, the base of your pyramid should be wider, or less wide, in fact, narrower, because you're young. The theory of it is that as you get older, the base of your pyramid gets wider. The base of my pyramid would be things like paid for real estate, no mortgage, physical gold and silver in my possession. And you could say cash, but cash is like literally melting in terms of its value. But let's just put cash in there too, in the base of your pyramid. These are things that are very low growth. They say the money market, low growth, low yield, safe, stable, secure, not risky. The middle portion of your pyramid would be things like, short-term treasuries throwing off a yield, a little riskier, utility stocks paying a dividend, a little riskier, but throwing off some income. And the top, maybe it's 60% on the base and 30% in the middle, and then the top 10% would be mining shares and cryptocurrencies. And the theory is you lose your ass on the top 10%, lose everything. You make very little, if nothing, on the middle 30, as long as the base of your pyramid is chugging along at a decent 2, 3, 4, 5% clip. And gold's averaged over 9.9% for the last 25 years. If you look at it as a whole, you never go backwards. Now, in a perfect world, you kill it on the top 10, you do fine in the middle portion, and the base is inconsequential. You can make more money on the top 10% than you can on the entire 90% below it, if you're lucky. And so I do that with things like XRP, but truthfully, they freak me out. It all does. Just putting the ledger in the computer freaks me out. And but I'm, to me, that's speculative, but I see the wisdom in it. I see the logic in it. I see the speculation in it. But I think to invert your pyramid and put all of that kind of on the betting on an outcome is silly. And I think the difference between, if we're going to call it like people, well, gold is the old grandfather. And crypto, whether it's XRP or Bitcoin, is a teenager, barely. And so you have history behind the old guy, and you have intrigue and promise on the new guy, but you can't bet everything on promise. You can bet enough on promise and intrigue to where if you hit it, you kick ass. If you lose it, you're not destitute. And I think that's the part of merging our two communities together, is that speculation is good. But if I had one complaint against this generation or the way that we have gotten, my mentor, a guy named Richard Russell, God rest his soul, he said to me, Andy, if you make 7% a year, you will go down in the Hall of Fame of investing. And, you know, you look at that now, people say 7%, you out of your mind? Like crypto, like Apple and Nvidia, and, you know, all of these things that parabolically move higher, and instant gratification is not fast enough for a lot of people. And I think everyone, you know, with, you know, from Texas Hold'em on up, everything is about gambling and making money quick. And so that's my only complaint with all of this, is that if you're going to do it, at least do your due diligence and your research, and don't just bet on speculation. Have reason behind why you think XRP is going to go to the moon. And if it's really solid and really valid and you believe in that, great, then do that. But I don't think enough people do that. And they do it just because they think they're going to get rich quick. I think there's room for speculation, even if you don't really get the inside. Just don't overweight yourself on things like XRP, which could be life-changing or maybe not. And, you know, when you hear about the Genius Act, which is going to be stablecoin rails, they're not using XRP. Does that mean that the banks will? Does that mean some of the countries in BRICS who signed contracts with them will? Sure, good. And if it does, yeah, it might be the best thing you ever did. So I don't know if I just said a lot of nothing, but what I mean is that I am, you know, you can't teach old dog new tricks. You could me. And I have, you know, I own some Theta, I own some XRP, I own some Bitcoin, but it represents the very top of my pyramid. It's not down at the base where my real assets are. But nonetheless, I think that is, for me, the way that I've gotten ahead, because, you know, as long as you're not risking the majority of your assets, then what you have in these things, I think, can be life-changing if you're right. And to a large degree, you guys have been right. So then take some of that and reallocate it. Take some of the profit off top and reallocate it so it's not overweighted and the pyramid is inverted and tips over. You want to reallocate it so that you keep that same model, keep your original investment, take some of the profit, put it in gold and silver, widen your base, make yourself more stable. It's like trying to swing a golf club as hard as you can with your feet together. Watch what happens. You're going to fall over. You're not going to have good balance. And I think if you have good balance, you can take a much bigger cut at things. And that is kind of the way I look at it.
Makes total sense to me. I think you nailed it with the psychology piece for especially our generation. It is very much get it now. I think it has partially to do with social media and the culture in which they grow up in from a media environment, but it's also just the general cost of things. It seems like if you don't jump there, you won't get there, period. And people are already feeling the pain at the pumps with everything going on. How bad are things going to get there?
It's funny you say that. It's true, you know, and I want you to think about in terms of holding dollars, okay? My father said to me not too long ago, he said, you know, Andy, your mom and I were married in 1963, right after I graduated college. And we could live comfortably on my first job, which was $6,000 a year. I said, come on, Dad, bullshit. No, he said, no, I'm serious. 6,000 a year, we lived comfortably. Rent was like $60 a month in an apartment. And I Googled it. The average salary back then was like 10 grand a year. Okay, fine. First job out of college, I believe it. So has everything gotten more expensive, or is the dollar that we measure things against collapsed in value? And the dollar continues to lose value. The CPI that they tell us, it omits food and energy and housing. And anytime something gets too expensive, they substitute it. A year ago, coffee was up 85%, so they substitute it with tea, because obviously no one's going to drink coffee. It's gone up that much, and they'll drink tea every morning. So the point is, we're lied to about inflation. Inflation is much, 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 much higher than people think. And when you talk about oil, you know, it is anything you're wearing or you're sitting on, or the picture behind you, or everything in your room, everything is a byproduct of oil, right? Everything. And higher oil contaminates everything, because if it wasn't created using oil, which probably was, machinery and everything, electricity, it was shipped using oil. And the higher the price of oil goes, the higher everything gets, and you get price inflation. There's inflation caused by, you know, overproduction and massive production and everyone buying. And things going up, or it could be just by the cost inputs going up so high. And I think that it's crazy to think what could happen if this is sustained. Not only that, you've got, you mentioned earlier, should I buy food and water? There's nothing wrong with being prepared. You don't have to be a prepper, but you think about the just-in-time nature of things and how long this could go. The major driver for the petrochemicals and the liquid natural gas that comes out of the Gulf, and one of the liquid natural gas refineries was just hit in, I think it was in Oman, or Qatar.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the major component for fertilizer. And look back over the last couple of years and all the food issues that we had: chicken processing, egg processing, crops in Europe being burnt. All of these things, could it lead to famine outbreaks across the globe? Maybe, who knows? The point I'm getting at is that energy is the most expensive or the most vital, important part of anything, from shipping to production to everything, and depends how long this takes. I remember the Bush administration said it would be, $400 or $500 billion in costs and would be over quick. When it was the war in Iraq, it ended up being 5, 6, 7 trillion. They were off by a factor of 100 by the time it was all over, that'd be 10. But nonetheless, they were way off, and in timing, and they always undershoot the cost and overshoot the time frame. So I would say, look, we're already back to the Biden era gasoline prices right now. So yeah, it could be substantial. It really could. And you look at the PPI, I think it came in at an 8% annualized price right now. So we're going back into high levels of inflation. Remember, the CPI misstates inflation. If you look at John Williams of Shadow Stats, he would say real inflation is running 11%, add 11 in front of the number that they tell you. So he'd say real inflation is running about 14%. And how does he get that number? Just measuring it the way they used to measure it before they made all of these changes under Carter and up through Reagan, where, now they have this inflationary agenda. So they have to mask what real inflation is running at. And otherwise things would just break apart if we really knew what inflation was at. But you tell me, is inflation really at 3%? Or when you go out on a Friday night for dinner and have some drinks? I mean, when's the last time you were able to do that at under $100? When I was a kid, $100 seemed like $1 million. Like, I remember being 15 years old and being a bagger at a grocery store. And when someone would pay with $100, if it came to $100, it was like cart was filled up to here. Now you go to a grocery store, get a couple of New York steaks and a box of strawberries, you're already at $100. And so it's like, inflation is something that is to be concerned about. And the longer this goes on and the more disruption we see in oil and gas, it will get much worse. And then, you're going to see releases of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that Biden already bled down. That will be a Band-Aid over a gaping hole. Let's just hope this is something that isn't protracted. But they were already saying that, bombing this liquid natural gas plant, it could take months or years to get back online. When you start blowing up infrastructure like this, God only knows where it goes. But yeah, inflation is something that I'm concerned about.
Yes. I mean, the thing that's been happening over there in the Middle East, I think, is being totally under, I guess, people aren't taking it seriously enough. The way that I see it, when we've got a continued escalation of what's happening there with no sort of an off-ramp in near sight. And as you just mentioned, you're talking about infrastructure that is being hit that cannot easily be repaired and taken back online. Qatar today basically just came out and said, there's the largest oil field in the world is shared between Qatar and Iran. And the south of it was just hit by, well, we don't know for sure exactly who did it, but they were hit in the south, the Iranian side of this oil field. And because of that, they hit the north side, which is Qatar's side of the oil field. Qatar is responsible for 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. Like you said, there's other byproducts. There's even helium is another byproduct that everyone's been talking about because that's necessary for the engraving that happens in the AI chips that are being developed around the world and that entire race that's playing out there. Qatar came out today and said that they're going to have to pull the force majeure or however you say that for essentially not being able to honor their contracts for up to 5 years, guys. Like that is a massive, massive amount of the world's natural gas and oil that's just coming offline indefinitely, right? Because also, let's say they get the ability to go back and repair. Okay, they're going in, they're repairing the stuff, and then Iran says, nope, actually, no, we're going to drop another bomb, right, in that area. Well, now you've restarted the whole clock on that thing again. And so, anyways, I just wanted to point to that as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But I don't see the oil situation and the gas situation coming back down anytime soon because we're only seeing an escalation of the conflict. And that conflict is leading to long-term cascading problems across everything in the market. So just wanted to
well, and I agree with all of that. And you know, when you have higher inflation, you're supposed to have higher interest rates, right? Because they have to balance each other out. If you have super high inflation, well, why? If you buy a treasury yielding 4% and inflation is 14%, your negative real return is negative 10%. So you have to raise rates to compensate for inflation, and so that's you know the unusual part of this is why I think it's managed and it's a bunch of horse shit because they, you know, well, the market thinks that they're going to raise rates and higher rates isn't good for gold because it doesn't pay any interest, which is true. Now let's talk about that for a moment. There's something in mathematics called the law of 70 seconds. You guys know what that is? The law of 70. This is something they ought to teach kids in sixth grade. And the fact that they don't teach shit like this is just stupid because there are very few things that are more important than the law of 70 seconds. It's mathematical law. You take the interest rate you are being charged or you are charging, divide it into 72, and it will tell you how long before your principal doubles. At 7% interest rates in 10.2 years, your principal doubles. So the theory with interest rates in gold would be if you're getting 10% interest rates on US treasuries, you can double your money in 7.2 years with safety. Now, two things. One, the dollar is losing value so precipitously. Is that really a good place to go? Okay. Two, the overall health of the dollar globally. Yes, it might be the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry hamper, but we are 200 trillion in debt when you add in unfunded liabilities, no manufacturing, here comes AI, we're uneducated. What did Ray Dalio say? 60% of the country has a literacy rate under the 6th grade. I mean, all of these things, in other words, if we were the United States after World War II, and when I started in this industry, those are the people I talked to, your grandfather's age people, and they're amazed. They were amazing. God rest all of their souls who are no longer with us. They were an amazing generation. They did what they said. They never screwed around. They understood hard work. They believed in faith and family. They did everything that made this country great. We were on a moral high ground. We liberated the world from tyranny. We did it with class. And when they came home, they behaved and acted with class, and they built this country into the greatest place in the world where every kid grew up since then wanted to come and wear Levi's jeans and live the American dream, right? And then all of a sudden we had this last administration where it was too stupid to be stupid. I mean, it really, truly was. And if you think I'm wrong with that, I would encourage you to spend 10 minutes reading the Cloward-Piven effect. These were husband and wife teachers at Columbia, and read it, and then think about the last administration, how you can turn a capitalistic society socialist. But you look at what has happened to this country in the last several years, not only our indebtedness, but our immigration issues, the perception of election integrity issues, two-tier justice system, lawlessness. I come from nothing and I outworked people, and we come from nothing, literally, and I outworked everyone for the last 25 years to get to where I am. That's called meritocracy. How hard you work, how do you keep your nose clean? Do you work hard? Do you stay out of debt? Are you on time? Do you treat people the right way? Or does it just matter what your lifestyle is? My parents were hippies. I grew up in a house that smelled like weed my whole life. I went and played baseball at college, and I was a jock, and I understand lifestyle. Liberalism is not what it is now. Liberalism was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Now liberalism is nonsense idiocy, right? You can be liberal socially. I am. Whatever you want to do it. I don't care what you want, drugs you want to do, who you want to sleep with, great. But you can be fiscally conservative as well. The point of it is that we have gone so far astray from what this country was, what made this country great, that I think this is the issue with the argument of rising rates being bad for gold. If the dollar was respected the way we once were, this country was respected the way we once were, then yes, the debt would matter less. Having these very, very strong interest rates and being the engine of manufacturing and growth and of, the morality that this country stood for, law and order and not a two-tier justice system, everyone being equal under the eyes of the law. All of these things that made this country special, everyone came from somewhere, but they came under a way of coming into this country legally and assimilating and contributing, and all of these things that once were so amazing about this country have been scattered to the wind. And so when you talk about rising rates, okay, rising rate paid in dollars that are getting inflated away by a country that's lost its bearing, and by a country where no one's buying our treasuries anymore. So do rising rates do anything? Do they mean anything? Let's look at the 10-year treasury. Gold has doubled it over the past 25 years, doubled its performance. So when you talk about, they're afraid that the Fed is going to hold rates, or even the gold doesn't like rising rates, that's a bunch of nonsense. The biggest money in the world is standing for delivery for gold and silver. The biggest money in the world, nonstop. Every single month, these rates that are going up a quarter point, half, it means a bunch of crap. But that's the way they want to frame it. Now, like I said, I'm a patriot. But ask yourself, is this the country that it once was? No, it's not. And the divisiveness, we were the United States of America. We're not united anymore at all. In fact, you guys have these feelings, I go to Thanksgiving, my wife says, you open your damn mouth as we're walking in the door, I'm going to kick your ass if you say one word when you walk. I'd like to stay through dinner this time. Do not say a word to anyone about your beliefs. Okay, fine, I promise. But when I grew up, you weren't defined by who you voted for in your last election. You could have a conversation with someone who didn't agree with you, but it was civil. Yeah. And the difference between smart and intelligent is that the intelligent person, like I said, may be really intelligent, and they learn more and more about less and less, so they know everything and are experts on nothing. The smart person, who maybe not even be as educated, but is street smart, says, something, man, you got something there. Tell me more about it. Let me see if I can change my mind on this a little bit. If you never listen to other opinions, you never grow. And my point is simply this. This country ain't what it once was. And I hope to God we find our way back. But when you talk about rates moving up a little bit, being negative for gold and silver, it's the biggest bunch of horse crap I've ever heard. Because did suddenly the world just want to buy our treasuries and trust us again and flood this country with demand? I would argue no. And when President Trump, and I shudder to think what it would have been like underneath Harris and Walz, of all people, but President Trump, the one thing I don't like is that after 4 years of idiocy under Biden, where everything that was done was too stupid to be stupid, like it was almost planned to knock us off a peg, or 2 or 3, drop us way down, for whatever reason, bring us socialists, have the one world order, you'll own nothing and be happy, Klaus Schwab type of nonsense. But the one thing I wish he would have done would, you can show strength, peace through strength, but extend the olive branch instead of the stick. And I think a lot of countries have really, really been turned off by this. He talks about this big coalition of countries that are going to join. Well, just about every one of them has said no. All of them, Australia, France, Italy, Spain, they all said, no, we're not joining in on this war. So now we're going it alone. And is that really good for the prospects of the dollar and of our markets and of countries wanting to hold our debt on top of being wickedly fiscally irresponsible.
At this point, Andy, right? I have to ask. We saw what the previous administration was very visibly heading toward. Now you've got a new administration that wasn't campaigning on the idea of moving in a certain direction that they're moving in now. But at this point, could it be that what Trump is doing is just intentional?
Yes, in a nutshell, yes. So, and I've talked about that. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. Like, this is where stupidity or courage transcend. This is where they cross. In 2019, I started doing videos on the BRICS. No one had heard of the BRICS. Everyone thought I was an idiot. The Belt Road Initiative, what the hell is that? You really think Saudi Arabia would break away from the US and dollar hegemony? All of these things I said in over 5,000 videos. Now everyone talks about it. I get asked to go on Fox News to talk about it. How'd that happen? Well, I'm either too stupid, or maybe I just feel that I want to tell people what I think based upon all my research. Could it be? Yes, it could. Why? Well, what did I say twice now? We're broke, 200 trillion in debt. We're uneducated. We make nothing. And here comes AI. My son, who works for me right now, was getting paid 80 grand a year out of college to work in Manhattan for Price Waterhouse. And his job as a forensic accountant was to analyze real estate investment trust balance sheet. Now, what's that really worth anymore when AI says, done? He spent weeks on it. Done. The point is that jobs are going to go away. So you're going to have a K-shaped economy where the rich get richer and the poor can't even put food on the table, and you'll have maximum efficiency in these corporations based upon or at the expense of millions of lost jobs. So what do? What do you say to your kids and your grandkids about your chances of, like you said, everything costs so damn much. How do we get ahead? How do we buy a house? When 20, 30 years ago, people were married with two kids before they were 30. Now the average age of people buying a house is over 30, way over 30. And it's like, because it's too expensive, right? And how do you get ahead? But there is no inflation. Inflation's only 2%. Yeah, bullshit. Inflation is way higher than that. They're just masking it. So, how do you get ahead? And by the way, we're reliant on everything from penicillin, aspirin, aircraft parts, military components, all of these things of all entities, China. There's something called Triffin's dilemma. Triffin's dilemma is the theory that as the world reserve currency, you will always have a trade imbalance. You will never run a surplus, and your manufacturing base will be eviscerated. Why? Why would that be? Well, it says this: if the dollar is the only currency you can use to buy oil globally and transact global business as collateral and whatnot, we cannot provide enough dollars to the world alone just through trade. We don't trade with everyone. So what happens? Those countries have to sell their currency in the open market to buy dollars. We have to export dollars, which strengthens us against them and decreases theirs against us. And over time, the constant churning of this creates imbalances where, let's send all our manufacturing to Cambodia or to Vietnam, who just joined BRICS, or to China, because their currencies are way lower than ours. So your manufacturing goes there at a fraction of the cost. And that's why it always hollows out manufacturing. Now, there was a real idiot named Jared Bernstein, who was Trump's crypto czar. I just got to check out one thing here. I'm sorry. See when I think good to keep going, but let me just double check. No, I got till 2:00. Okay. So Trump's crypto czar, Biden's chief economic advisor. I was thinking the Genius Act there for a minute. Biden's chief economic advisor, Jared Bernstein. If you ever were on X, watch this dude try to explain how treasuries were created. Might have been the most humiliating thing I've ever seen a politician do. I mean, he finally said, I give up, it's too complex. He's being interviewed on, is that the lead economic advisor for the Biden administration. If you could put a link to it later, it's fantastic. It's truly humiliating. However, this guy did write a report called Dethrone King Dollar, and it was picked up by a lot of newspapers, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, and in it he says we cannot be the world reserve currency anymore. It's a privilege we cannot afford. We've destroyed our manufacturing base. We will always have a trade imbalance. And he was right. Vice President Vance has said the same thing. He's written about it on White House letterhead. Triffin's dilemma, you can't do it. You can't be the reserve currency anymore. Now, could it be that he is fostering like all these Asian nations, which, 30% of global GDP, China's largest trading partner by far, have signed up with China on the SIPs and the Enbridge, which is not compatible with the dollar. We put sanctions, which we put tariffs, which really aren't tariffs, they're sanctions. Tariff is used to protect manufacturing base. What manufacturing base? If you buy oil from Russia, you're going to be tariffed 150%. Bullshit, that's a sanction pretending to be a tariff. Oh, but since we're involved in this war, we're going to lift the temporary sanctions on Russia. They can sell their oil to India. That's fine. We'll be benevolent because we've created this chaos, which is nauseating in and of itself. But the point of it is if we are going around the world and to our allies in the European Union, to Canada, to Mexico, to all these countries, you're going to pay tariffs. You're in essence pushing them away, giving them reason to not use the dollar. You are creating a system, not a globalized system, but one of mercantilism, where it's here at home. Now, could he be doing that to reset the system? And I have theories on that, which are a little bit deeper. I've talked about it a lot. It's a two-level thesis. If you want me to keep going, I will.
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
Yeah, man.
So I tried to think, the same question you asked, could this be what it's all about? And I'll give you my thesis on how it could happen. And maybe I'm way off. I don't know, but it made sense to me. And I'm the only one saying it. So either I'm stupid again, or I'm brave enough to say something I believe in and couch it by saying, I don't know, but it makes sense to me. So, okay. All of the things I said to you, broke, insolvent, uneducated, don't make anything, and AI is coming to destroy 50% of entry-level jobs and nice white-collar jobs all the way up. So what do we do? What do we do? How do our kids make any money? You guys already say it's got to be quick because it's too expensive. How about your kids? How expensive is it going to be then? What's going to happen to the dollar? And so we must bring back manufacturing. Trump's talked a lot about bringing back manufacturing, but what does Triffin's dilemma says? As the world reserve currency ain't going to work. Your dollar's too expensive. No one's going to buy your stuff by first having to convert to a high dollar. Case in point, the dollar's been going up and oil's been going up. Who does that affect the most? Everyone else across the globe who has to first buy dollars to buy high price oil. The dollars are high, the oil's high, they're getting killed, right? So what do we do? What do we do? How do we sell product at a very expensive dollar if you have to first convert to dollars way up here to buy the product? Why not just buy it from someone else around the world where you don't have to go way up here to buy dollars? That's the theory. That's why Triffin's dilemma says you'll never have a reserve, or you'll never have manufacturing base if you're the reserve currency over time. So what if the theory is to shed the reserve status, quietly default on it? How would you do that? So there are three crucial pieces. The first piece, well, I'm gonna give you one of the three pieces without explaining it until the end. Since Trump won the election in November, we have imported, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars worth of gold every month. And that is something that's never happened before, ever, never happened before. And it's month over month over month over month over month over month over month. Let me see if I can give you, I don't know if I can real quick, the numbers that we have seen. Don't know if I can. I don't know if I have these numbers handy, but we have seen tremendous amount of gold come into the country for the last 16 months, more than ever, right? And it's weird. No one's asking who's standing for delivery every single month for billions and billions and billions and billions and billions worth of gold. Why is no one talking about it? Just give me 10 more seconds to see if I have some numbers here. I don't know if I do. So we saw 4.2 billion in gold leave the exchange last week alone, 2 weeks ago. Actually, I take that back. That was out. Maybe it was. That was out of GLD. Excuse me, I misspoke. GLD 4.2 billion left, and that's another discussion how they take gold out of the ETFs, the primary custodians, and how they do that in a private manner. But here we go. So we saw 2.9 silver. Crap. Where the hell is gold? Here we go. Shit. I guess I don't have. I have silver. Anyways, I guess it really doesn't matter. The point is that we've seen billions and billions and billions and billions leave the COMEX every single month, or delivered to COMEX every month, and a lot of it leaving. And no one's asking what's this all about. Like literally, it's never happened this way. We've always been net exporters of gold, and since he won the election, every month, massive amounts coming in. Shh, don't tell anyone. All right, so keep that in the back of your mind. Now, we talk about the Genius Act. What is the Genius Act? Most people don't know, and it goes into effect next January, if not sooner. And the Genius Act is law already, and it says that anytime money moves in dollars across the globe forever, it will be via stablecoin on a blockchain network, right? Stablecoin, and I don't have to explain this to your viewers, but just for the hell of it, you know, the blockchain is the highway, the stablecoins are the cars. They're backed by short-term treasuries, 90-day or less. Now, first thing that does is create synthetic demand for the treasury. People are freaked out about the new Fed chair who's hawkish and going to raise rates. Yeah, bullshit. Every time money moves across the globe from next year on, any time. Remember, the Fed can only control the front end of the curve, the overnight lending rate, right? So if every single time money moves, whether it be buying a pack of cigarettes or a new villa in France, if you're paying for it in dollars, I don't care. It will move via blockchain, backed by stablecoins, backed by 90-day or less short-term treasuries. Synthetic demand for the treasury, which collapses short-term interest rates on the front end of the curve, rendering half of what the Federal Reserve does relatively neutered. And people say he's trying to end the Fed. Maybe he is, right? So it and also kind of deals with money creation. In many respects, it really does curtail what the Fed can do. So, but you're creating synthetic demand for the front end of the treasury. You're going to have money coming in, buying treasuries, which funds the government on a short-term basis, keeps rates low to incentivize trade and borrowing and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay, I get that. Well, what does that do with manufacturing? Well, I'll get there. So you look at a company like Tether, right? USA Tether, which their token is already Genius Act compliant, is one of the biggest benefactors of the Stablecoin Act. They already are pretty much the biggest stablecoin player on the globe. And guess who just became the CEO of this new division of USA Tether? Oh, that's right. It's a guy named Bo Hines. Well, what was Bo? Bo was Trump's crypto czar through August, made the rules on a lot of this stuff, and now is running USA Tether. What does Tether have? Well, Tether has the largest stockpile of gold in the world outside of central banks. They've been buying roughly $1 billion worth a month. And they've got $12-15 billion worth of gold that they are holding. Now, when we talk about devaluation of the dollar, you mentioned FDR confiscating gold. What did he do when he confiscated gold? Gold was $20 an ounce. That coin, 20, paid everyone $20.67. You guys get 67 cents, dozen eggs or a nickel. That's a lot of money back then. Everyone's happy. Then he immediately devalued the dollar by 40%, making gold $35. When you devalue the dollar, you devalue it not against the dollar index, which is the melting basket of ice cubes that are melting. You devalue it against the one global neutral asset. Globally, gold. Everything else falls or rises to against gold, right? So when Tether is taking all of the, and what did the Clarity Act say? Oh, that's right. You cannot transfer interest that is backing the stablecoins. That stays with the issuer. So if you and I are trading, I owe you money, I send you $1,000, it'll look the same out of my bank account. It just gets to you in 7 seconds, just like Venmo or Zelle. And stablecoin is created when I send you the money. When you receive it, it's burnt. We can't keep the interest. The issuer keeps it. So what's the issuer doing with it? Oh, they're buying gold hand over frickin' fist. What does that do to the dollar? Devalues the dollar, not the dollar index. Gold devalues against gold. So they keep buying it and buying it and buying it with all the interest created. And pretty soon, anytime money moves anywhere in dollars, there'll be interest that will be accruing that they can't transfer. So you continue to buy gold, it goes higher, 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 higher. The dollar goes lower, 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 lower. This is how you would begin to have an environment where you can sell your product to the world in a devalued dollar. Dollar was down 10% against the dollar index last year, 80% against gold. Gold is the one neutral asset. All right, so interesting. You might be able to start doing that. What else? What about the back end of the market? Well, that's where it gets interesting. And this is where I had Judy Shelton on my show twice. Once I interviewed her and once my co-host Michelle McCory interviewed her. And in both cases, she said the same thing. Now, who is Judy Shelton? She is was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016. Due to partisan politics, shockingly, she wasn't confirmed, but she is one of the most brilliant people I've ever talked to in my life. Fascinatingly brilliant. And she is all over X. She has a book called Good as Gold. It is best-selling. And she said to me and Michelle and all over X, she said, Andy, in no uncertain terms, when I was part of Trump's transition team as his advisor, he said to me that on July 4th, 2026, which will be the biggest day of his presidency, the 250th anniversary, he will reintroduce sound money to the world by backing the back end of the bond market with gold, starting with the 50-year treasury, ultimately doing 5, 10, 20, 30, and 50-year treasuries, redeemable in gold with the 5, 10, 20, and 30, zero interest. The 50, maybe 1%. Redeemability in gold. That's interesting. Let's think about that for a second. So no interest.
So she's saying that that's what he's going to do.
That's what she is saying. I'm not saying it's me. She's saying it. Go watch her on X. You'll see that. So if that's the case, right? Let's play that out for a minute. So if I were to sell a $20 million bond, someone takes the other end of it. First of all, there's zero upfront borrowing costs. I get the 20 million, right? They buy the bond. I owe it, or whatever the bond costs. I owe it in gold at the end. Whatever, there would be a discount there, but I get the money up front for the bond sale. They get the return in the end in gold. Now, the sillier I am with my fiscal and monetary policy, the higher the price of gold goes, right? So here's how it works. You have zero upfront borrowing costs to bring back manufacturing. You bring back manufacturing at zero upfront borrowing costs. You owe gold at the end, right? So that's interesting. That sounds good. But what does that do? So right now, let's just say gold's 5,000 an ounce. I know it's come off a bit. That would be 4,000 ounces. The Van Eck Group, Van Eck Funds, their mutual fund company, they came out and said, their emerging market bond team said, there's reason to think that the dollar could lose reserve status. If it did, we see gold going as high as 139,000 an ounce. They said it, not me. Divide that into 20 million, that's about 110 ounces. So let's play this out. We soft default on the reserve status to bring back manufacturing, or our kids or our grandchildren are dead. If we don't do this, we're done. We're broke, we're insolvent, we're uneducated, we make nothing, and wickedly in debt. Okay, what do? Well, we need to put people back to work making things again. Okay, so Triffin's dilemma says you can't do it. The reserve currency, the dollar is too high, so we quietly soft default on the dollar by letting gold go higher and higher and higher and higher, and the dollar goes lower and lower and lower and lower. The dollar is being devalued. And how do you get gold higher? Every time money moves anywhere, the interest, I don't care if it's issued by American Express or Bank of America or Tether, that has to go into treasuries. That the treasury yield is not transferable. If they continue to buy gold, pushing the price of gold to the moon, well, your dollar just got massively devalued, so you have a chance to sell things to the world. That's what they've all done to us. And number two, well, what did Judy say? Now, here's where there's a little bit of connecting the dots. This is what I've done and have the courage or the stupidity to say. Well, is there any coincidence that Bo Hines is in there now? I mean, Remember all the trouble that Tether was in? What happened to all that? Why don't we ever hear about the trouble that Tether's in anymore? What if they went to Tether and said, here's what you're going to do for us. You're going to accumulate all this gold with all of the interest that you get on the treasuries. You're going to buy gold. You are now the largest stockpile of gold in the world outside of central banks. You're going to keep doing it. Gold's going to go higher and higher and higher and higher. It's not going to be done by the US government. It's too obvious, but you're going to do it for us. You're going to be the primary benefactor of the stablecoin bill. USA Tether, and you are going to continue to do this with the proceeds, and quietly that gold will be sold to the US Treasury over time. We're going to buy it from you. You're going to be richer than you can ever imagine. You guys and your future generations will never worry about a thing again. But that gold, and you're not in trouble anymore if you do this, you're going to buy our treasuries, you're going to take that interest, you're going to buy gold, and that gold will be sold to the US Treasury. Because what did Judy say? Well, we got to back the back end of the bond market. So the first thing you would need to do is bring back the gold. Oh, that's right. We've been doing that for 16 straight months, and no one's asking who the hell is doing it and where's it all going. Second thing you would need to do is create some vehicle to create synthetic demand for the front end of the treasury and take that interest and buy gold. Oh, we did that with the Genius Act. And the Clarity Act says you can't transfer, so perfect. And then all that gold ends up in the treasury. And if Van Eck funds is right, and the dollar does lose reserve status, how do you get people to buy our bonds? They're not going to want our bonds redeemable in dollars that are getting killed. Redeemability in gold, held in an escrow account somewhere to validate it and to inspire confidence. But redeemability in gold, that's interesting. And if the price of gold keeps going up and up and up and up, what that means is the issuer who owns the gold, owes the gold at the end, would have to pay back way fewer ounces of gold at the end of the time period. So you bring back manufacturing at virtually no upfront borrowing costs and build new high-tech manufacturing facilities with very low costs involved, sell these products into a wickedly devalued dollar to the globe, around the world, or to the United States. And if you're going to be more mercantile, but at affordable prices. And the only negative byproduct I can see of doing that is you'll have universal basic income for a while, because the shelves will be more bare, and the cost of goods will be more expensive until we're able to, we're used to going to Walmart and getting stuff cheap, but that is because the world took our dollars for everything and then took those dollar reserves and put them in treasuries, which lowered interest rates, which kept our asset prices high, the goods we buy at Walmart cheap, and it was a great deal. We felt rich. Our 401k, our home, low interest rates, high asset prices, cheap goods. Well, that's going to change, and it has to change, because if it doesn't change, you will have a situation where there are very, 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 very wealthy people, the people who run businesses and are way more efficient as everyone else gets fired, and AI runs a lot of the stuff that used to be done by humans. And your kids are going to have no shot at the American dream, or we go back to our roots and we bring back manufacturing and shed the reserve status. Now, one last piece to all this, if you look around the globe, all you continue to hear is all of these countries trading their local currencies, not a currency, their own currencies, over Enbridge or SIPs, settling in balances in gold, the neutral asset. What would that do to all these countries? Well, it would strengthen their own monetary existence. Instead of strengthening ours, they have to keep their house in order. And they trade their currencies with each other. And if I don't want to hold your currency for whatever reason, then I will settle it in gold. And what are they doing with the Shanghai Metals Exchange? Putting metal exchanges all around the Belt Road Initiative. So that Saudi Arabia doesn't have to go to Hong Kong to get their gold, because remember, when gold leaves China, it comes out of Hong Kong. No, they'll have their own vault in Saudi Arabia, and everyone will sprinkle gold amongst these vaults, so that when we settle imbalances with all of our trading partners, it's done in gold. We trade our own local currencies, and we are not reliant upon the dollar or at the whim of the United States, who can sanction us, who can kick us out of SWIFT, who can inflate away their dollar, who can print money to create bonds and buy it themselves if the Federal Reserve. It's immoral. They're creating money to buy bonds, and we're supposed to hold those bonds and sell you our stuff for stuff you just push a button and create. We've lost trust. And a system that is no longer backed by gold is backed by trust. And if you lose trust, Your girlfriend cheats on you. Trust me, honey, it won't happen again. And then she's out till 3 a.m. the next night. Is there a problem? Do you trust? Or is that going back in your head again? What the hell is going on? How many people, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 75 times, shame on me. How many times can the world believe that, that the dollar system, this hegemony, is a good thing when we are proving to them that it might not be through irresponsibility and sanctions and aggression? And you look at China, even their Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is the largest regional financial and military organization on the planet. It is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You look at BRICS, it's all voluntary. There are no mandates they have to follow. You look at the way that their presidency goes. It rotates every year. Not one entity holds it. Cooperation. So could it be done on purpose? You bet your ass it could be, because there is no other way. We can't tell the world we're defaulting on the reserve status. Instead, let's push them all away. Let's put tariffs on them. Let's go around and be aggressive. Let's do these things, make people say, what the hell? We don't want dollars anymore. Is that what they're trying to do, to create this event? Now, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. All I do know is that if you're not a contrarian, I think you'll be a victim. And if you hold your wealth in dollars, you're going to go broke. I do believe that. So whatever the rationale is, I will tell you that if you can think of a better way to bring back manufacturing, let me know. Because if we retain world reserve status, it won't work. And if you can think of a way that your kids will have a bright future in an environment where we don't make anything and we're wickedly broke, and population's getting older, and AI is here to really mess with things.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? We can't be reliant on these countries for everything from aspirin to aircraft parts. We can't.
So Andy, if you're listening to this, it sounds like the sky is falling, the world is ending. And so I think a lot of people default towards doomerism. We try to paint things in a positive light for the individual. What can the individual listening to this or watching this focus on to try to bring back some semblance of agency in their own life to try to make things better?
Well, look, dude, first and foremost, in reality, there is a very fine line between pessimism and realism. And the biggest mistake you can do is bury your head in the sand and not see it. I would rather see what's coming at me than be rolled by it.
Mm-hmm.
And, reality is reality. The truth is the truth. And so, yes, look, remember the Shawshank Redemption? Andy Dufresne had to crawl through 2 miles of shit to get to the other side. There is optimism, perhaps, at the other side, but to say that there isn't the reality of the consequence of being the largest debtor nation on the planet, and the whole system is based upon trust, and we've eroded the trust at every level, literally at every level, is a big mistake. So what do? You accumulate assets, first and foremost. There's something called the Cantillon effect, which basically says people closest to the money have a disproportionate benefit than everybody else. Why? Because they can buy assets, and their assets go up. And by the time the money filters down to people who don't have the wherewithal to buy assets, well, then it manifests itself in the higher price of everything. And that's why the rich get richer as this inflation and this stuff happens. They buy assets go higher. So the thing that you should do is buy assets and pay yourself first. Like I told you when I started this company, my father said, I'll fire you if you don't buy something every 2 weeks. I don't care if it's one silver dime, or in your case, one Satoshi. Buy something every single time you get paid, no excuses. I started doing this when I was 19. I'm 55. I swear to God to you, what my father said to me was the greatest gift I've ever been given in my life, to understand the laws of compounding. If you've ever done anything and excelled at it, I played college baseball until I hurt my knee. And to get there, I wasn't the best player on my high school team. I outworked people. I started in a one-room office the size of a closet here, and 36 years later, I've outworked people. You don't just do it overnight. You work and you do things that are regimented, and you work out every day. That's how you get strong and big. You don't go to the gym for 3 days and work your ass off till you can't move and then say, I'm done. It's about repetition and repeating and paying yourself first, because I got news for you. Life is like a roll of toilet paper. And when you're young, you don't notice it moving. And as you get older, you start to see shit spinning faster. And in my case, my friends' parents are starting to die. And you get older, and then what happens? And you're older, and you look in the mirror one day and say, I'm 55 years old. Where the hell did that come from? I still feel like I'm 19. But if you don't pay yourself first and let the laws of compounding work in your favor instead of against you, as everyone else in this country does, you're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. If you could sit down and have a beer with your 55-year-old self and say, listen, man, if you don't do this, we're both fucked. So you need to start saving every day, and not in dollars. Save in assets every single chance you get. And it doesn't matter what or how much, it's the power of compounding and repetition and paying yourself first and respecting your 55-year-old self who says, dude, you got a lot of expenses and the world's expensive. And by the time you get up here with me, the dollar ain't what it once was. In fact, it may even be something else. Start saving in assets. And if you go and look at the wealthiest people on the planet, they I'm sure they got decent sized bank accounts, right? Okay, but they have assets, they have homes, they have cars, they have metals, they have crypto, they have stocks, they got assets, and assets feed you, liabilities eat you, and the dollar is a liability. So that's what the person who's looking to get ahead should do. Stay out of debt best you can, and save. And even if it means paying a partial payment on some of your debt so that you can pay yourself first and continue to progress. I look back at all the accumulation I made over the last 37 years and it blows my mind. Like, how the hell did I accumulate all that? Well, you do it every 2 weeks for almost 37 years. You'll see how fast you can do it. But to think you'll be young forever is a very big mistake, because I still feel as old as you guys do. I don't know how old you are, but I know I'm older than you, and I feel like I'm your age until I try to get up and watch my knees hurt, which is true though, man. And it's like, where did time go? And it just has a way of catching us all. And, you know, it's very easy to procrastinate and everything. And I think if people take one thing away from this, I'm a guy that came from nothing and achieved success through hard work and prioritizing myself and my family's future first above all else. And even if it's only one silver dime, you're making that priority, and you are reinforcing your behavior. You are reinforcing that structure, which is important. You look at anyone who's really successful, they have a structure. They're using a calendar. They know what they're doing to get to where they want to be. Otherwise, it's by luck. And that's what I would say. Anyone who wants to find positivity. Look, man, I'm the one thing I regret. I mean, I'm not even regret. It's like I'm bummed out by it. Is that, like, I used to be much more the class clown, happy-go-lucky, smile all the time, laugh all the time. This stuff does wear on you, and I wish the message was more positive. And there is positivity, but to ignore it and just stick your head in the sand ain't the right way either. And I have learned in business, you either roll with the changes or you get rolled by them. It should be the exact same experience in life. And I'm willing to at least acknowledge that we can't keep going down this road of pissing everyone off, being irresponsible fiscally, running around the world with a stick. I mean, look at it this way. The Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan think tank in Washington, says by 2031, 100% of tax revenue will go just to pay the interest on the debt and mandatory entitlements, which are all off balance sheet, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, which means military expense, the $1.5 trillion we just did, that's all discretional. We have to borrow that. So we're going to borrow money from the world to beef up our military, to police the world and drop bombs on countries. Ain't going to work forever. It ain't. And that's just the reality of it. So again, yeah, it sucks having these feelings and trying to convey them to people. And this is why I don't talk to people in my daily life. I live in a country club. I play golf with these people. Unless they come up to me, and by now they all know what I do, I don't say a word to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
And one time I went to a party a long time ago. My dad, we used to write a newsletter before I did podcasts, and my dad would write it. He said, you need to learn to write. The first piece I wrote was, my wife likes to go to parties, a long time ago. And I had a friend who I played baseball with who was actually drafted by the Oakland Athletics. He looked like Mr. Clean. big dude, strong, bald, huge, loud. You'd walk into a party. He was in the basement in Minnesota, or their basements. You'd hear him when you walk in the door. And this was 2004 or 5. I had sold my house in Minnesota. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our kid in February. She's going to kill me. I said, we're selling. They're building houses down the street for a third of what we just paid. We're selling. She says, you sell, you're dead. I'm going to kill you. I'm 9 months pregnant. It's winter. I put a sign in the yard. The next day I slept on the couch for a week. And I'm dead serious. And we moved. And it was the best thing I ever did. By the way, as a footnote, I put all my money in silver at $4, or not $9, and sold it at 40 to build my dream house in Minnesota before I moved to Florida because of the stupidity in Minnesota. But I'll go back to the party. So this was a year or so after I had already done this and put my money into silver at $9. And this buddy of mine who I've known forever, he's giving me shit in front of a whole party. Why would you? He ended up becoming a pro poker player. Why the hell would you put your money in silver? You give it to me, I'll make more money playing poker. And you're renting? There's so many good houses out there. What are you doing, dude? Loud. And I'm just drinking my and on the way home, my wife said, why didn't you say anything to him? I said, do you like to get invited to parties? Because what I am going to say to him, which I would have eviscerated him, we'd never be invited back again. This wouldn't have ended well because I'm going to tell the world that the sky is falling and that you need to prepare. And I was way early. I'd rather be 6 years early than 60 seconds late. But the point of it is that no one ever wants to hear this stuff. And it is a bummer. And it isn't Ferraris and, parties in Maui on a yacht. It's reality. And I think we have to understand that we are at the end of the rope. We're at the end of a 50-year currency cycle. We're at the end of a 100-year empire cycle. Go back and compare this to what happened in ancient Rome through debasement of the coins that they would pay the soldiers. That's why there are ridges on coins. They would cut around them and give them just a little bit of a smaller coin. They wouldn't notice, right? And if you do that to all the coins, so you got a whole big stockpile of tailings you can make more coins out of. That's why, and then finally they debased the coins. It's the same thing as inflation. And they were waging, the empire all around the world. It got too expensive and they crumbled. It's the same pattern you see over and over and over again. You can be bummed out by it and ignore it, or you can validate it and do the best you can to get out of the way of it. And in essence, you're doing that with Bitcoin. But I think it could even be taken further into other assets that will protect you in the face of a declining dollar. And I hope I'm wrong. And if I am, great. If I'm right, God help us all if we don't prepare for it.
Thank you for that, man. Thank you for your time in general. We definitely want to respect it. I know you said you had an out. Thanks for taking the time to do this, Andy. I know you probably hadn't heard of us before this, but I also have an audience as well that would love to hear from you on YouTube.
I would love to come on anytime. Actually, and you guys are welcome on my show. We just eclipsed like 110,000 viewers. I'd love to. I'm very impressed with you two guys, and I don't say that to be condescending or in any manner whatsoever, but I love nothing more than ever than to see young people who understand what the hell is going on and are open-minded. Open-mindedness is one of the keys to my success. If you think you know everything, the world will tell you you don't. Keep open-minded, keep doing what you're doing, keep getting people to understand the problems with fiat currency. I'd love to pick up where we left off. You guys are more than welcome to come on my show. If you'd send me an email when we're off here with your contact info, I will have my staff reach out to you. I'd love to have you guys on, and I'm dead serious because you guys are very important to opening up people's eyes who may not want to listen to an old guy like me, but that you're very articulate, you're very well spoken, you're very smart, and you see things that a lot of people I talk to don't. So the pleasure was mine, in all sincerity. I normally don't stay on a show this long, but I thank you. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you so much, Andy. We appreciate it greatly. And everyone in the chat has been loving it as well. So thank you so much for your time today. And we would love to have you again on again in the future for sure.
Oh, count me in, brother. Count me in. And until then, I hope you guys stay well. And hey, man, the world's not coming to an end, but nonetheless, let's hope anyway. Nonetheless, you still got to, you got to be prepared. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share and sharing your insights. And I look forward to picking up where we left off real soon.
Cheers.
Fantastic, man.
Thank you so much, Andy. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll definitely chat soon.
See you guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, man. So Andy, whenever you are ready, you can hit the leave button, and then you can hop off, and we'll continue the conversation here.
Right on. I will. And seriously, let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Perfect, man.
Thanks so
All
much,
right,
Andy.
guys, take it easy.
Have a good
Yes,
one.
sir.
You too.
All right. Keith, how you feeling? Chat, how we feeling?
What up, chat? What up, chat?
That was fun.
That was awesome, man. Super cool. And one thing I wanted to touch on for you guys, because I knew he had to go, but I wanted to touch on this because he was talking about this America's 250th celebration and how Judy Shelton has been talking about all of that. I did a whole video on that a few months ago. And I just wanted to point out for the people who aren't aware of this kind of stuff, Trump is making a huge deal out of this America's 250th anniversary. You keep hearing it coming up here and there. There's this whole web page that's just set up just for the celebration that's coming. He signed an executive order to make sure that there's an actual celebration for America's 250th birthday.
Aren't they doing a UFC event too?
They might be doing something like that as well. And there's some of this that actually ties into some other things, right? So Ripple, for instance, right, potentially has some tie-ins to this whole conversation. Now, there's a woman who's named Rosie Rios. Okay, and Rosie Rios was the former treasurer of the United States. Her name is on the $100 bill. Okay, so I had a rug that was like a $100 bill. Her name is on that rug, and it's on all the $100 bills. And so that were printed during her time as a treasurer. And she is also the chair of this organization called America 250, which is responsible for throwing the celebration of the United States 250th anniversary. And now what's super wild is that Rosie Rios has been on the board of Ripple since 2021. But I just checked here today, and her name is no longer on their website.
Wow.
So I don't know if she's still on the board or not, but when I made that video, for instance, she was still there. It was just a few months ago. But now all of a sudden she's not on that website. But Rosie Rios, potentially on the board, has been on the board of Ripple for the past 5 years, is also a part of this entire celebration and all of that. So I just wanted to point that piece out because I think it's very interesting and fascinating how all of this stuff can potentially tie in. And Judy Shelton, we all in the XRP space know who she is because she's also a proponent of potentially ending or at least having a massive reform of the Federal Reserve and its role. So I wanted to point that out for everybody as well.
That's fascinating, man. There's so many of those things all across everything right now. And that's the beautiful thing about the internet, right? Is that you can see all these things. So
yeah, man,
thanks for sharing
all
that.
There. All out there. Yep. What up, guys? In the chat, we've got plenty of news that we're going to run through, as well as some reactions that I got to get from Ben today. But,
all right.
What do you think?
Definitely go show Andy some love.
Oh, yeah.
On his show. And I'll make sure it's linked after this. I'll add it to the description, and it'll also be linked on Spotify if you're listening to us there. Cool. We got it right here.
Yep. So that's his YouTube channel, Miles Franklin Media. And then there's also Miles Franklin, the actual gold seller as well. So go and check out Miles Franklin as well. MilesFranklin.com. Precious metals.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure that's linked in the description box after this. But yeah, awesome episode. Appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us through that. If you are new or if you're watching this on the recording after the fact, definitely consider subscribing and turning on all your notifications, because this channel is exclusively for streams like this. So you won't be spammed with notifications. So it makes a lot of sense to turn on the notifications so you can actually jump in and contribute. And normally we get some questions from the audience, but he was going and he was dropping some good stuff, so we didn't want to stop his flow.
Yeah, he was spitting today. But yeah, and I know there's a lot of new people here because when I looked at the likes to viewers ratio, it was a little bit off.
Something's wrong there, bro.
Something's up. So if you're new here, let me let you in on something. When you come in, we love for you to hit that like button. It means a lot to us.
It's the polite thing to do. Come on.
But should we jump into the news, man?
Let's do it, man.
Fantastic. So some news on the block this week in the tech space. We've got Meta, formerly known as Facebook, which I still call them Facebook, is shutting down their VR social platform Horizon Worlds in a further pivot away from the metaverse.
Yeah, they got cooked on that, man. But for a company that large, you have to take moonshot bets. So
Correct.
you have to. They just picked the wrong one, which now they're going to do this with AI big time. They're going to be pure AI.
Yeah, and in terrible timing too. I mean, it was the hype of the moment, which is cool, but the market was not there. The demand was not there.
No, the crypto connection. Do you remember when people were buying digital real estate in his
Yes.
metaverse game?
Yeah, there was like Sandbox was
Yes.
the big one, I think.
Yeah, and people were spending crazy amounts of money for these small specks of land. And I still remember the tweets like it was yesterday. They're like, "This is like buying prime real estate in Manhattan in like the 1900s." It's like, okay, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that regard, technically there was the crypto people that had the demand for it. But I think it was just from a macro perspective, right? That was not what people were really doing. But I mean, they're taking their AR thing as well, the augmented reality thing with the glasses and whatnot. So we'll see how that all continues to shape up for them. But everyone has absolutely been clowning them. They changed their whole name to Meta right in the middle of this metaverse trend, and now they're done with it.
Yeah, it's insane to see. I think they had no other choice. They're also throwing around crazy amounts of money trying to recruit AI talent too, right? So yeah, it definitely seems like they're trying to play catch up here, and they spent a lot of time and resources. They also acquired Oculus largely because of this investment, which then made Palmer Luckey go down his path of the military defense company too. So definitely a strong butterfly effect from these decisions, and the connection to crypto is super interesting too.
For sure. So we'll bring up some memes about that whole situation later as well. But moving forward, we see that X might be rolling out a dislike button over the next 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, what do you think about that?
Especially on a platform like Twitter, I think it's a really bad decision because it's already so weaponized from a negativity perspective. Like the current incentive structures reward that shit so much. And so I think that if you give people another tool to hate, and now there's some visual that creates culture around hating on people, I just think that can snowball really fast. I don't think it'll be here in a few months.
Do you think it could help with like maybe it helps with the algorithm though too?
Could. It definitely could. I don't know if a dislike button is the way to do it though. I think why not have some sort of other, maybe something that is seen when a user is scrolling but doesn't get attached to the post. It's more something in the back end that gets attributed to that post.
Right. Well, and maybe that is too how it works. Because on YouTube, for instance, you never see the
Yes.
dislikes.
Yes.
So it could actually, well, they used to be, you used to be able to see them, but now you don't.
Can you
And so maybe they use it as the data point to say this person's basically engagement farming,
Yes.
right?
Which I think anything to eliminate that is net positive. And I also saw the same guy who's their product manager saying that the incentive structures will soon get switched so that
Yes.
doing that crap gets penalized. And I saw someone crying about, I guess not crying, but like complaining because their income was impacted. And then the guy replied back saying, "Oh, well, you got your monetization shut down on this one account. Why not try the other 4 that you've been engagement farming with?" Like, dang.
That's funny. Yeah, Nikita Beer has it's very interesting. Like he's coming out and he's roasting people. He's participating in the community. He is one of us, as they would say on X. So here's that tweet that he said. Nikita Beer is the head of product over at X. And he said the financial incentive to spam on X will decline enormously over the next 30 days and soon be negative. So you're going to lose money.
Which I think they have to do something like that.
Yeah, so fascinating place to see X at. Moving forward, we have an announcement coming out of the Sam Altman ecosystem, and specifically here with his WorldCoin project. So Sam Altman's World, I guess they're called now, has launched Agent Kit, which is a developer toolkit that allows AI agents to cryptographically prove that they are acting on behalf of real people. So I didn't get to look super deep into this, but they're basically teaming up with Coinbase. And the reason that they're doing this is because Coinbase has this stablecoin standard called X402. And the X402 protocol is essentially being used for stablecoin micropayments. And this agent kit solution is aiming to make AI agents verifiable economic participants rather than suspicious automated traffic. And so the reason that this matters is because, for instance, with the Molt book situation, where it's like the Reddit for these bots, over there, people are trying to figure out, well, are these actually bots that are coming up with all of this, or are these bots being directed by someone, or is this actual autonomous activity?
Hmm.
And so in the world of payments, that's going to be pretty important to figure out, right? If, for instance, some also just from a permissions perspective, because this was the other thing that people were afraid of, is Moltbook having the permission to explain the details of someone's back end of their website, or like giving information out that the user isn't aware that they're giving out, or whatever.
Hmm.
And so what I'm understanding about this agent kit, just off of the first read, is that they're trying to make sure that if money is being sent around, that there's an
Different
actual
criteria.
person that
Mm.
has verified and authorized that to occur on a different platform or whatever. So, anyways,
Yeah, they've got to have stuff like that sorted out. Otherwise, it could be devastating incredibly quickly. And it certainly seems like a lot of people are really pushing to get more consumer friendly agentic options out there. So not only do the tools need to be built for the consumers, but also like the protection for the consumers against themselves too, right?
right,
So that's
100%.
super interesting. I think that will be one of the biggest stories over the next 2 to 3 years is the development of the agentic economy.
Yes, all the CEOs are also talking about it now. This agentic commerce, right, is the big trend and opportunity that is upon us.
Hmm.
In the crypto space, Algorand apparently has made the difficult decision to reduce their workforce by 25%. So we're seeing layoffs across the board, even in this space. They're being super transparent about why they're doing this, which is also very important. They basically said that it has to do with the market conditions, right? Due to the uncertain global macro environment, as well as the broader downturn in crypto markets, Algorand Foundation, which is a pretty large crypto blockchain project, is laying off 25% of their workforce. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of crypto projects cut back or consolidating, like being sold to different teams. And so there's a lot of that going on. And I don't necessarily think it's purely bearish, right? Because if people have lost their passion for something, then handing it off to someone who may be more equipped or have more energy and enthusiasm for it, it's not necessarily always a bad thing. But anyone losing their job obviously sucks.
No doubt. Moving forward, we have the SEC apparently approving NASDAQ's plan to introduce tokenized trading for certain securities. So this move is going to allow participants to opt to have their trades in Russell 1000 stocks, as well as ETFs tracking the S&P and the NASDAQ, settled as tokenized securities rather than through traditional methods. Tokenized shares will trade alongside standard shares on the same order books with identical tickers, prices, and investor rights. The depository trust company will remain involved in clearing and settlement as part of this new initiative. Holy moly, guys. People are saying that we're essentially on track to actually have tokenized securities being a real thing by Q3 of this year. So crazy move there.
Dang. And so where does your head go initially with that?
Well, just that the headlines here that we've been hearing about that is not just headlines. It seems that we're moving forward towards making this happen. There's one other piece to this news as well that I'll add, which is it's relevant, which is that the CBOE, which is the options exchange, has filed a proposal with the SEC to launch 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, U.S. equities trading. So not tokenized trading, but 24/5 trading, which will obviously eventually end up being tokenized, if not off the gate. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, 24/5 tokenized trading. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the world leaders in finance have been saying out loud that everything's going to be tokenized. So none of this should really be surprising.
Yeah, Paul Atkins recently, the head of the SEC, actually also just doubled down on that recently. He says that he's already had a statement that was circulating around how he said this will happen in less than 2 years. And now he's continuing to say, yeah, this is happening. Most security transactions will be settled in tokenized formats and soon.
Crazy.
So, and that's the guy himself, right, of the SEC. So I think he would know.
Mhm.
Moving forward, we've got some more updates, guys. Things are getting crazy, and it's not slowing down. We've talked a little bit about this during the pod with Andy, but I didn't mean to show this fully, but apparently there was a journalist that was in southern Lebanon, and he was attacked, essentially, apparently targeted by a government. I don't know exactly the details of this, but this happened just a few hours ago where they basically were pretty sure that they were targeted and that this wasn't just some accident thing. And you could kind of see that he was in the middle of like he wasn't around any structures, right? And that projectile hit right behind him. So that's wild. But I just wanted to point that out because that happened this morning. I don't have a whole lot of news on that. Just wanted people to see that that occurred.
And so who shared that?
That was shared by some random. It was Bricks Info, but it's making the rounds. Like this is something that just happened.
Got it.
Yeah. So then we have the situation that has happened over the past 48 hours now, which was that the South Pars. Let me go ahead and just pull this up on the map. South Pars is the Pars oil field. Period. It's a gas field, rather, is the largest gas field in the world. And essentially there's like this oil field that Iran and Qatar share with one another. We talked a little bit about this during the pod. And what happened over the past 48-ish hours was that it was struck. Iran's side of it was struck. This is a big deal because let me read out what Mario Nafal said, right? South Pars, the south side of this, accounts for 75% of Iran's gas production and gas fuels, 85% of Iran's electricity grid, right? So that's not just hitting a military target, right? That's hitting a massive piece of civilian infrastructure that keeps the lights on for millions of Iranians, he says. And so what did they do? Iran, in response, hit Qatar's side of this gas field, okay? And now you've got a huge situation coming up where Iran didn't know exactly who did it, but they just said, well, if y'all going to do this, we're going to hit over there. And so during that time, Iran also issued a warning. They said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, evacuate your energy facilities following these strikes on this facility, on our facility, because we're going to retaliate.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they did. Qatar was hit in retaliation. The world's most sophisticated gas processing plant took 14 years to build, has been hit. And Qatar is responsible for about 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. And they put out a statement saying that, so look here, Iran attacks, wipes out 17% of Qatar's LNG capacity for up to 5 years.
Wow.
The CEO of Qatar Energy says. So, just something to keep in mind. I saw this graphic that looks like it's from a Bloomberg terminal. I did my best to try to verify. Relatively, this is for sure what I've seen. How much of Qatar's liquefied natural gas exports goes to Asia? It's a lot of it going to Asia. China being the number one, India, Pakistan, South Korea, Kuwait, Italy are some of the main beneficiaries of Qatar's liquefied natural gas. And then so everyone was trying to figure out, okay, well, who did this, right? So Donald Trump put out a post. He said, Israel, out of anger for what is taking place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The U.S. knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar has in no way, shape, or form involved with it. And the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. He said, no more attacks will be made by Israel, in all caps, pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar, in which instance the United States, with or without the help of consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entire of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran and the world. Let's be clear, but whatever. But if Qatar's LNG is attacked again, I will not hesitate to do so. Thank you for your attention to the matter. Now, that came out last night at 9 p.m. Central Time, so 10 Eastern. Basically saying, this is all Israel's fault. We had nothing to do with this. And don't hit back. Like, leave them alone. Because if you don't, then we're going to take out the whole thing. We're just going to blow up the whole thing. So that was wild. And then we got even more information that apparently Israel is saying, well, y'all knew what we were doing. So this headline has definitely changed since I first had it. But so now they're saying basically Trump says that he told Netanyahu not to repeat Iranian gas field attacks, but really, so he's claiming no prior knowledge of the attack, but the Israeli officials are saying that the strike was coordinated with the U.S., despite his denial. So anyways, just wanted to let you guys know that's what's happening. There's a couple of other things to take into account here, because as this continues to escalate, essentially the problem here is that you're having attacks on civilian infrastructure. These are not military targets. These are people's gas. These are people's potentially water that is at stake and that is getting hit. And so one of these attacks that have happened throughout all of this time has been near a nuclear site in Iran, or whatever, some nuclear facility. And the scare here is that if they were to actually hit that thing, so maybe they did this almost as like saying, hey, we will basically mess up this entire region. Because if they were to actually hit that facility, there'd be a chance that all of that nuclear waste would end up in the water system over there. And if it ended up in the water, then basically no one would have water, because all of their water is coming from that water there in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that would pretty much be absolutely devastating for the hundreds of millions of people that live in the region.
Yeah, it's these are like all of it's just news headlines to us, and it impacts our dollars and cents, but it's also like so many people's lives, which is the craziest part.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why, once again, I think the reason I'm so adamant about trying to say, like, guys, this is happening is for two reasons. One, Iran is a country of 90 million people, and their entire existence is at stake, and they are of a faith where they're willing to do anything until their death. And that's just the people that are in Iran.
Yeah.
Right? You've also got people all over the world that are Iranian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you start to threaten their existence, the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to threaten yours.
Yeah, it's life or death. Like, think about what people have done in those situations, right? Like, nothing is off the table at that point. So like 100%. All logic and reason goes out the window, right? Because what does that mean in a point where you're dying?
100%. So that's piece number one of the equation. Piece number two of the equation is that I know people are so used to things not affecting them.
Yes. Like you said in your stream last night about COVID.
About
on
how Saturday.
Sorry, Saturday. Whenever it was. That and I know this personally because I had my birthday party and it was the last night before everything shut down. It was the last night that everyone was out.
Wow.
And then literally the next day, everything shut down. We had heard rumblings about this for months, right? And then everyone just said, no, it's BS, it's BS. And then our entire lives got flipped upside down.
100%. And in the West, that was the only time, honestly, that we've ever had what's happening in the world actually come back to us.
That's a great point, because if you're immune to something, they're just stories, they're headlines. A lot like Charles talked about, it's difficult to have like empathy or sympathy for something that you can't see, touch, or truly understand, because it's just a story at that point, like anything else. But it's also hard to blame people for not reacting a lot, because there's stuff like this. This was obviously solidified. This is real. But if you go on social media for like 10 minutes, you're going to see 5 other things that are going to end the world too. So it's difficult to know what is significant, what isn't. And I'm sure a lot of people, if they're not in the weeds like you are, Keith, They just, oh, it's another clickbait headline, and they move forward.
100%. And that's another problem we have. It's like all of the boy who cried wolf that's happening all the time on the internet.
Totally.
All caps this, all caps that. We were talking about back when it happened, like Russian minister said some crazy headline. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but basically it was just like someone who was in the cabinet, just like how our senators run their mouths in the US. Like no one cares what he's saying. It doesn't actually mean anything. But it was like this headline like Russia's about to nuke somebody or some crazy stuff like that. But anyway, so we have that problem as well. So I can't read this article for you, but Asia's fuel crunch forces 4-day weeks, school closures, and you see gas lines starting to heat up in places like Vietnam. They're urging people to work from home amid this fuel supply and price crunch in the Mideast. So just in general, it's already, as we just got started here, right, starting to cause issues in other parts of the world. And this is something that is going to hit everyone. Right?
What are the gas prices like currently where you are? Have you guys been impacted?
I haven't actually properly looked, and I haven't filled up that recently.
Got it.
But I imagine it's moving upward.
Yeah, we're seeing some pretty sharp increases in Canada, and people are already making a lot of posts about it. And that's like the scariest part about all this stuff, is because like why things can get bad so fast is because bad news travels incredibly fast, especially through the tool of social media. Because if someone sees something that is bad, the incentive structure is they know they'll get attention for being the person to share it.
Facts.
And then now, oh, wow, that guy got this many views and likes for saying the cost of gas. Like, I'm going to milk this joke for my own attention too.
Crazy, man. We see a Sharp 24/7 Academy said gas is up 30% here. Lorenzo Ward, gas is $3.90 in Utah. And it was $2.70 2 weeks ago. Right, so that's almost like a 50% increase.
And that's where people start getting involved, right? Who typically don't touch this stuff, is that when they go to the pump and it's so much higher, they now start asking questions and start paying attention to things. And that's when stuff can snowball very fast.
Yeah, man. So anyways, guys, just yeah. For me, that's water, food, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's, much like Andy said, it's everything.
Yep. So just, be prepared to the degree that you can. And then so on the financial side of things, the UAE central bank puts out a support package and lifts in that it basically some of their stocks started to rise because they basically started printing money. So it's $1 billion package that they've put out. In the U.S., the Pentagon is seeking $200 billion in budget requests for the Iran war. So that money pretty much would need to be printed to keep up with the spending that they're doing there. And we also learned that potentially the United States Treasury is going to unsanction Iranian oil. That is a potential here. They've already unsanctioned some Russian oil that's sitting out there. They're potentially going to unsanction Iranian oil. And so, guys, like that's
crazy.
That's pretty much an admission of they screwed up. Like everything else that people are saying, like, oh, it's clear that they messed up because this and that and that. If they unsanction Iranian oil, either they're saying that either they're putting it out there because it's an option and they want them to know that this is something that they could do to help de-escalate.
Yeah, you help me a little bit, I'll help you.
Hopefully that's what it is, because otherwise they're literally just saying, yeah, we have no, like, we're just going to fund the people that we're fighting against, right? We have to lift the sanctions to ease oil prices at home. But I don't know. So hopefully that's all it is that hopefully. What I'm afraid of is that there actually is not a plan, and that this has actually just been a complete, utter, unthought through war that's been started. I don't want to believe that, because there's so much money that's being spent on these people's salaries, and they've had plenty of time to try to think through and come up with some scenarios. But man, there is a chance here that there's really actually not a plan, and that to me would be the worst case scenario. So that's why I say, hopefully, what's happening there is they're trying to give Iran a way to say like, hey, this is something we can do to help you.
Yeah. It's always hard to tell. So your guess is as good as mine.
For sure. So I was seeing, I saw this video of this guy who was like an old school, like it actually wasn't about him. It wasn't from him himself. It was a guy talking about an old general who was responsible for doing a war game. And this was like in the 90s or something. And basically what happened was he played a scenario kind of like a Middle Eastern kind of scenario where it's a big country in the Middle East where, and it was a war game from the Department of Defense. Everyone's coming together. There was like hundreds of millions of dollars. This is something that's public. I just don't know the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were running this war scenario. And this general was like, he was playing the role of basically Iran. And he was saying he did some tactics that basically they couldn't respond to it and they lost. But because of that, they just restarted the game and also fired the guy because he won. And they wanted to silence his opinion. So I'll have to find the full story and bring that to you guys at some point. But I thought that was fascinating, and I wouldn't be surprised by it either, because what they were basically saying was that the reason that they had to fire him is because if he was right and if that was actually how things went down, then all of the money that the US government had been spending would need to get cut. Like it basically proved that all that money that they were spending was worthless. So, anyways, somebody hopefully out there knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, bring that back when you find it.
Yeah. Moving forward, there's some things that I got to get your reaction to, Ben.
Sure.
Polymarket just announced that they are launching the Situation Room in Washington, D.C., the world's first bar dedicated to monitoring the situation. Ben, what do you think of this?
Bro, so they're like, oh my God, that's so dystopian, man. So it's, instead of, I guess, a sports bar has already basically become that now at this point with the access to gambling. I guess that's not too dissimilar. This is like the sports bar for people who aren't into sports. Like the geopolitical interested person will go in there instead of watching the game. They'll go do that.
Right.
Is that real? Like that's confirmed?
It's
or are they
real.
trolling?
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
No, I went on to see there were some other reports of it.
Some people will be all over that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, that graphic, for instance, it just made it look terrible to me. First off, there's nowhere to sit in there. Like, don't do it like that. And like the problem that I would have with this is that, like, the reason I think it won't actually work, or it wouldn't work for me, like I don't want to be there, is because it's a bar, and that aspect of it, I think it takes away from what you're actually potentially trying to do. Like what I would try to make the experience is less like a bar, but more like if I wanted to work on Wall Street, but I just never had the experience, like I'd want to have that experience. Like people who are serious.
Yeah. That's where my head went right away. But then you throw in the alcohol.
Yeah, like, dude, come on, bro. Like, I don't want to be there, bro.
No, that'll be a shit show. Yeah. That's
There'll be some degeneracy.
Genuinely insane.
So yeah. But we'll see what happens for him. Good luck with that one. Let's see. What else I got for you is Jim Cramer. That guy, he cannot stop running his mouth. So he made another post the other day. And at this point, like something's got to be up, right? So he says very oversold this morning, actually, at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, right before the market opens too. Just saw that. Just now thought about that. 9:24 a.m. Eastern. He says very oversold. It's just like, bro, this dude said delete this. So this is kind of meme-ish, but it's also something I wanted to get a reaction to, Ben, because like my thing is, so obviously every time Jim Cramer says something, the opposite is what's supposed to happen. But like at this point, is he an agent? Is he being paid to do this? I mean, he is being paid to do it, technically, by someone. But the question, I guess, is like who and why? Or what do you think of this kind of stuff right here?
It's so hard to tell because he does it so frequently and he's pretty consistently wrong, but like occasionally they'll be right? And then, yeah, there's definitely some connection to higher powers there. I would certainly assume, but anyone's guessing. I think especially he's guessing. He may have stuff that we're not privy to, and maybe he's doing this on purpose, but I honestly don't have much to contribute beyond that. Where does your head go?
I mean, but the thing is like he's actually wrong most of the time.
Yeah, it's from what I've seen of his stuff, it seems like 85% plus is like wrong.
To the extent to where the inverse Cramer ETFs have outperformed Nancy Pelosi.
Wow.
In 2025. So, you know, it's just like it's almost like it's an actual signal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, hey, to everyone who's in on it, or like to anyone who knows who gets the game, I'm actually saying the exact opposite of what I'm saying right here. And this is like the way to publicly tell everyone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. It'll be interesting to see how, like, if he starts to be right. Do you know what I mean on things?
Moving on.
Would you say that things are oversold?
No. That's a good question, because I didn't even ask myself, but no.
No, it seems like you would be kind of viewing things the opposite if things go the way that you think they can with the world.
Exactly. It's like no one is sold yet at all.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been none of that. Like, look what happened when there was the lockdowns, right? And how quickly was crazy. I remember a lot of my friends being like, should I buy stocks now? And I'm like, you think I have any better idea than you do? Like, are you kidding me? So, and then it rebounded because of intervention. So it's like, would they do that again if they had to? Probably. But how much do they let it drop? And did they want that to happen? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How I see it being is it would maybe be a natural floor creation thing, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, like a lot of people think that they're trying to induce a manufactured recession from somewhere.
I mean, at this point, I don't know what else is trying to be accomplished other than just blowing up everything that the world runs on. You know what I mean? I mean,
it definitely seems silly.
Yeah. So anyways, moving on, we had that quick piece about how Meta shut down their metaverse program. And so this video has been circulating of this old video that they put out. And this one was really funny. He said, just two humans having a perfectly natural conversation.
And keep creating. Now, Deb from our studios team is joining me. Deb, do you want to take us through some of the exciting games in the pipeline for Quest?
Absolutely. Over the years, we've had the opportunity to work with incredible developers like Vertigo Games, the studio behind fan favorite Arizona Sunshine.
I love Arizona Sunshine. That game basically got me and my friends through the first few months of the pandemic.
That's awesome. If you enjoy...
They know what they're doing here, man. I think they know how Twitter works, and they're doing this for the reshares that are free.
But this was old, though. This was old.
How old is this?
So this is actually literally from 2021.
Oh, wow.
Right? So
maybe not then.
So before then, I don't know if somebody said, oh, I watched this video the other day. It was like Mark Zuckerberg. They're like, wow, the update that they did on this was really good. Like, because like they're saying like they updated his software and he's like not a robot anymore.
Yeah.
But
in the chat, everyone's saying cringe. Yeah, it definitely feels that way. But 2021, I would not have guessed it was that long ago.
And so this dude said they pulled off the impossible, made a real human video look like it's 100% AI generated.
It does feel like that. Have you seen the clip on Theo Vaughn's podcast when he had Zuckerberg on there? And he's like, do you drink coffee? Did you see what that's
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That's mad funny, bro.
Zuck's a strange cat, man. But yeah, no, that was very, very difficult to watch.
So moving forward, there was another piece on the culture side of things that I wanted to definitely bring up. Oh, this guy was making the excuse or trying to talk about why the Benjamin Netanyahu videos might have been going around about him being like AI or not. And so this guy was kind of justifying it. And we heard from him earlier this week too. Let's hear what he had to say about this. He said, they're doing some weird stuff. This is Mr. Red Pill's joke army.
But they are doing something much bigger than just dropping AI videos. I just found out why they're doing all the AI slop. After I tell you this, keep your eyes on me. And I'm serious. Someone's not gonna be happy about this. This is not about where BB is or where he not is. It's not about that at all. There is something more massive than we have ever seen coming. So today I'm sure you saw the new video where the ring disappears off the finger. I can barely show it because they copyrighted the last video on Facebook. Also missed another security defense meeting, which he's always at, and his son, 7 days, have not tweeted once. But what if I told you that they're dropping these videos on purpose, knowingly posting these videos, knowing that it's not going to just sneak by the human populace? They're posting it as they're perfecting their AI videos, so in the future, something can happen. Let me explain. AI photos and AI videos have little micro brandings, little microscopic brandings on pixels that human eyes cannot see, right? So by putting these up every single day, they're able to really enhance, tweak, and get it perfect to the point where no person could ever tell that it was AI. They are using the human populace to help them experiment on these videos. Every single person thinks they're cracking some code and all this stuff, but that's exactly what they want because they're working on making a flawless machine. That way something huge can happen right in front of us and there'll be no denying it's real, right? They are actively removing the microscopic branding off these pixels. This is no joke. Oh, and a quick word from BB.
I'm alive!
Yes, obviously that was AI, and that's why I had the AI label on the video, because again, us creators have to label things as AI if they are, otherwise we get in trouble. And like I said yesterday, this only applies to creators and not governments. Something massive is coming. Don't believe your eyes. Spread the word.
What'd you think of that, Ben?
It's possible, but I feel like they've already got a perfect one accessible.
But they would still have to. But they would still have to know what we're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Like they'd still want to know. Yeah, like at what, or not even. They wouldn't have to know like what we're looking for, but like at what level are we going to be able to catch it, or what are the things that we're going to do to try, right, to verify as well, like those little AI tools. Because now, what can they do? They can go to those AI tools and like fix it to make whatever they put out work for that thing. Because also they don't develop that thing.
No. Yeah, it's possible, maybe. I just don't think they would need us to do that.
There is a mass psychology, like you do need to like to really pull something off, you do have to figure out how people are going to react. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like so I think that part of it could make sense. You might not need us to perfect the thing, right? Like he was saying, but you might need to see how we react.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And like what we actually do when we think that that's the case or not. How would we try to verify it or not? Because even if it's perfect, right, that doesn't mean that we're going to believe it.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's the point we're getting to, where people don't believe anything.
Facts, exactly.
It sucks, and I'm in that camp too, right? Because that's obviously by design too, because like now they show us things that apparently have been going on for a very long time, and right at the time when everything is now questioned.
Facts. So everyone's been talking about like the U.S. government just like registered aliens.gov.
Yeah,
that's another big thing that's going on right
something
now.
That's spread around Twitter. Yeah, definitely fact check that yourself to confirm. But I saw that could. Do you think that's relating more to like extraterrestrial aliens or aliens in like immigration things?
There you go. Who knows, right? That's a good point. So White House registered aliens.gov from the New York Post. But that's a good question. That's a good point. It could easily just be about that.
The aliens and UFOs will be part of the discussion here in the not too distant future.
Well, because then there was also that Obama thing where he came out and basically said it.
They plant seeds, man.
And then Trump said, he might get in trouble for that, but I won't let him get in too much trouble because he was leaking secrets, kind of thing, which is wild. So
yeah, they're all in on it, but they also know that they're there to speak to different people within the populace, right? So they do different things at different times to hit people when they're primed for a message. And so I think that UFOs, aliens, probably a topic of discussion here within the next month or two, maybe a little longer. I'd say 6 to 12. And then my extensive research into that field will serve the show well. Because when that starts to happen, I know the people to have on and I can speak their language a bit too. So yeah. And you could go both ways with that. You could say, okay, are they giving us AI because they don't want to believe that it's real, or do they want to get to a point where they can use it as a tool to convince us that it's real, right? It could go either way.
Yeah, I definitely could see it tying into the war thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Easily. Some crazy interception from that was like
Well,
about to destroy everything.
Yeah, actually, yeah, there was this clip that went around recently that was one of the ones from inside, and something was shot at it, and it just like kept going right through, no problem. So yeah, you're probably right.
Next piece, this one hits home, Ben. You've got Pierre.
It just went live pretty recently.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
talk about this. What's going on here, Ben?
It's the Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition party in Canada, now goes on Joe Rogan, which is like the most obvious thing in the world to do if you're a politician, right? Because everywhere else that you're going to create content, it's always going to be clipped for the headline that makes the most sense for the audience the publication is trying to speak to, right? That's why if you go to a left-wing outlet, a clip will be cut a certain way. If you go to a right-wing outlet, it'll be cut a certain way. And so I personally think it was crazy that he didn't go on there when the election was actually taking place. And so for him to go on there now just leaves me scratching my head thinking like, okay, I don't even know how to interpret this, because unless his media team is like so unbelievably incompetent to say don't go on, there's got to be some intermingling of people being involved and some planning. Because from an outsider's perspective who doesn't really understand media, the narrative they said for why he didn't go on would make sense, right? They said it's too controversial, he's too tied to Trump, it would be too much negative backlash.
And is this guy a liberal?
He's he's right. We would call it conservative, but your guys Republicans.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I just think that that's too high a degree of ignorance to be the reality. And so it seems manufactured to me, because if you're saying it's too risky and you're saying you got too much backlash and there's too much against you, that's the only antidote. And anybody with like an ounce of social media savvy would understand that a long form content piece is the only way for people to get to know the actual individual. But even more importantly than that, what would have won him likely the election is not the conversation, it's the clips that would have come from the conversation.
So but you're saying, your point is that he should have been on during the actual election.
Totally. He was offered to. And then apparently Joe said that his team declined, saying it was too controversial and risky.
Okay. Gotcha.
Which is unbelievably ridiculous. Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So you either are so bad at your job who's made that decision, or someone's paying you to do that. Like, there's no other way that gets done. There's no chance. Because if you just go look at the numbers, like, you don't have to go far back. Trump basically used it to win the election. Like, the podcasting circuit for Trump was a massive reason why he won the way that he did.
Right.
So it's so Pierre went on there, and I would venture to guess it's going to be talking about a lot of the seriously crazy things going on within Canada. And I'm noticing a lot of crazy stuff going on within Toronto near me, right? And again, I'm always so skeptical even of the things that I'm witnessing firsthand, because of how easy it would be to manufacture things when you understand the spreading mechanism of social media, right? Like, in the past 2 weeks, and this is pure anecdote, so I'm not saying this speaks for the current situation at large, but I've had a homeless man knock on the door of my gym offering to perform oral sex to me. And then I also walked past a lady just full on peeing in the middle of an incredibly busy street. And then I'm also seeing videos popping up of people doing that on public transit. And so for all these things to be happening, the guy offering that stuff, I don't think that's related, but the people peeing on the street. And then also there's a super viral video of a lady peeing on the TTC. And then, man, why I'm so skeptical about this is because my mind goes to social media message spreading as like the marketer that I am, right? And I've explained this concept to you guys last episode, where really the benefit of social media from a marketing perspective is that everybody is in buckets, right? And so you know the heroes and villains of everyone's story. And in this video where this lady is peeing on the train, it's like perfectly scripted. So the person who's filming it is like taking the internal monologue of the person who's on the right side here in Canada, who's like, immigrants are our problem, this is a massive issue, whatever. And then on the left side, there's like a counterparty saying like, you shouldn't be filming her, like perfectly playing the internal monologue of the left. So the comments infighting between the right and the left people were given exactly what they needed for that to go mega viral. like mega viral. It was like the second I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be everywhere, because I knew the conversations would go crazy. And then he goes on here 2 days later.
Interesting, man.
It just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like, and I'm not saying I understand the desire behind the plan, but it seems too scripted. And people would say like, oh, you're crazy. There's no way you could like coordinate getting people to pee around the city. I strongly disagree with that. People are very poor here. So like, I could probably pull that off with $1,000, man. If you went to like, go ahead.
And then technically you wouldn't necessarily need to coordinate people pee, but filming them though, right? Because you could look at it that way.
If you did this in the public space with enough people, if you just, yeah, so like the filming could be coordinated, but you wouldn't even technically have to coordinate the filming. It would happen organically.
True.
Because of the incentive mechanism we talked about before, where they know, right? Because if I'm someone who wants attention on my social media, if I film that, that's going viral, and it's coming from my page.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's like go ahead.
I don't know if people are that morally bankrupt. Like, you want to see that yourself too.
Are you
know what I
joking,
mean?
Keith? Are you serious?
It's not that I don't think, like, I think at scale, you would have people in certain places that would do that. Like, for instance, in New York City, that would happen. In Toronto, I guess that would happen.
Thing. Yeah.
But like, outside of that, like, I'm not going to stop my day to film someone else who I don't want to see pissing. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that your existence is the norm.
No, that's fair, man, for sure.
And another thing,
young people too, and
totally, it's right, because attention of any kind, what people would see as a plus, right? And why I'm so skeptical about when I saw it, I walked past a lady doing the exact same thing, and it was like 20 paces away from a public restroom, almost for like shock value. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like, even thinking through, okay, they're doing this right here, like that's the next thing. Like, I can even read the comments, right? I can picture it in my mind. They'd be like, the bathroom's right there. I can't believe they don't use it. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like it's scripted to create some divide within our country. And it's, yeah. And Dave said, Keith, poverty spurs the craziest stuff. Yeah. And that's the place that people are getting to in this country, man, is that people are very desperate. And the last domino to fall before things get so crazy is because everyone has the current belief systems that they do in this country, because it's been pretty good to live here for the last 40 or 50 years. And there's a lot of people who control almost all the power that are so immune to the actual impacts of the economy because their wealth is wrapped up in these fake inflated assets. If that domino falls too, things get bad. And if there were true market forces, it definitely would. Which is why I think that as Carney's getting more and more close with China, I think it's got to be about that. It's to open up the Chinese consumer to the Canadian market to maintain the floor that would not set things into true anarchy. So I don't know. It's just super weird.
Fair enough, man. You're in it. You're seeing it.
It's so strange. I've lived here for 5 years, and yes, people have gotten more and more poor, but I've never seen that in that long. And also, I think it's extra weird that it's women in particular, because women is more of a spectacle, right? Like, people will like that'll get people more going, because guys shouldn't pee in public, but guys do it a lot more frequently. Do you know what I mean? So there's extra layered upon shock value. So yeah, it's a very, very strange dynamic. And it seems like there's a lot of games going on, and people would say like, okay, that's so conspiracy. Like, who would plan to do this? I want you guys to go watch Mad Men. And there's this one scene where they faked a fight over a ham as like a marketing stunt, right? That kind of shit happens all the time.
Real stuff, man.
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. And so all of this to say is that, like, don't believe what you see. And if you've watched something and it gets you like super emotionally charged from your phone, someone is doing this. Like, someone's making money from this. They want you. They want to hijack your emotional state, and they want us to fight each other. Right?
Like,
man. Like, treat the people across from you like a person as much as you possibly can, and understand that if they're trying to convince you that someone else is your problem, they're probably the problem. So that's it, man. But it's just crazy.
Banger line. All I've got from here is some memes, man.
Let's see it. Also, my starter story video went live while we were on the call.
Wow. All right. Well, start a story from Ben, guys. We will have to all peep that.
I haven't watched it yet, so who
That's
knows?
so cool. Let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. So start a story. They do, oh wow, look at him. They do starter stories. They talk about the stories of founders and their projects and how they did them and whatnot. So Ben has now been featured on this page. This is a very like popular page in the space. 46 million views, 790,000 subscribers, huge. You can see some of the top videos right here.
Mhm.
And so Ben is on Starter Story, guys. So we'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know how I look in it, sound in it, etc. But I attempted to share some of the stuff that has made me like the most amount of money, and also opened the most amount of doors for me, in terms of how YouTube functions, how to leverage that. And I really share all this stuff so people can help their individual situation, but more on a mass scale, how people can be more media literate. Because yes, it's helpful if you want to grow something, but it's also wildly helpful to know how the thing works so that it doesn't hijack how you feel.
Love it, man. Ties right in to the memes. Just a silly one of the worst feeling ever at work.
Like the 4 new APIs. So what are your thoughts
Your name is called in a meeting, but you weren't listening.
on that, Tori?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That show used to slap.
Can somebody ping her and see if she's still there?
Sounds good. My connection is bad. Can you repeat that? That's
What would you go with?
That's pretty solid. I think that's pretty good. I would go with that one.
Yeah, I would probably go with, can you repeat that? I want to make sure I understand. That could backfire if it's something like super obvious, but
yeah, so that was pretty good.
that's so funny, man.
This one, I don't even actually get it, but it was just a funny thought to me. So he said, I updated Arch Linux and now my audio doesn't work. How do I fix it? And then this thought for 332 minutes, which is a pretty long time. And it just said, install Windows. So any tech people, let us know what that actually means and why that's, I guess, probably also a silly thing to ask ChatGPT to do.
Yeah, I don't fully get that one.
This one, can an LLM write maintainable code? The bot says, can you?
It's a fair rebuttal, I guess.
Pretty good. So they kept putting out videos of Netanyahu. People are pointing out in this one that like the ventilation here is all different. Why are they all different sizes and shapes and have different slits? Is this guy alive or not? This was 2 days ago. And then I just saw this one that I just thought was pretty funny. He said, I don't know, something's off. Let's see. This guy, he goes, $10 said, passing through the Strait of Hormuz if anyone needs anything.
that's yeah, that's timely.
It's like, well, that's what a friend. This one right here hit home for me because I've kind of been taking this approach. This guy says, me waiting for the second order effects of higher oil prices. And this is some people waiting at a train stop here.
With snow all over it.
With snow on it. Clearly in the path. This lady really sitting here watching what's happening and just waiting for it to get there. I mean, really? Not until the very last minute do they think to take cover.
Yeah,
like, what are
how
you
would
doing?
they not see that coming? Like from a concept point of view, like there's snow on the tracks. If a train comes, it's gonna do that. You think that's real?
Yeah, I do think it's real. I think people are to give you some credit, to take some credit away from what I said earlier. I do think people are kind of that dumb when it comes to trying to get social media content.
True.
I think they'll risk their life to do it. I just don't know if they'll.
I have also noticed that, like, as I walk around the world, like people's problem-solving skills, even just in like the natural space, is so bad, dude. Like I oftentimes it's hard to, like, I always think through when I leave my house, I'm gonna have to go, like, be around that environment, and so many people have their heads so far up their ass. It's just like hard to get through the day, man, because a lot of it has to do with the phone, but it's insane.
No, man. Hundo P. Understood with that one, man. Um, yeah, it's always interesting, man. I notice it when it's also certain types of places that you might go that you'll notice the dial kind of turning up on
Mm.
like people's awareness and whatnot.
More or less aware?
More or less, in either direction. Either
Okay.
direction. I see it on the road.
Oof, the road
know
is
what I mean?
terrifying.
You'll notice different levels of like, are people driving or are they on their phone?
And it's dangerous, the amount of people that are on their phone. And this is a take from, I think it was one of the Barstool podcasts, where they said that they think that in the not too distant future, looking back on driving a car will be seen as like insane that we did that. Like, damn, they were risk takers.
Facts.
Well, to think that, especially as more and more people get desperate and there's more and more chaos, it's like you're banking on them not doing something crazy or all that stuff. So yeah, driving definitely concerns me quite a bit, and just in general. So yeah, definitely don't text and drive. It's crazy how fast these things are moving. It's easy to get numb to how truly fast you're moving.
Yes, yes. Most certainly in a car, dude, like 40 miles an hour. And then you also, what we really don't think about, because physics, our minds aren't built for this, is when something's also heading at you at that speed, right?
Oh, done. Yeah,
Like you're done. So, yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it's not worth it. The text can wait. Yeah.
But only other piece is talking about the previous episode, some community. We had some funny comments
Cool.
from people. We talked about Welcome to World War III, the propaganda war. Shout out to all you guys who tuned in and who came back to leave us some comments as well. We always appreciate that. Brandon said, "Gah, these get better and better every time I watch." We appreciate you, Brandon.
Super kind. We appreciate it.
Yep. And then Real Conversations. We need more people like y'all out there. Said 226.
We need more people like you, man, or woman,
or woman. Pull up. One of my favorite podcasts now says the QAZ 1828. You've been with us for a second, so what took so long? No. My favorite part was when you guys talked about the whole Jasara, not because I learned anything new, but because it's nice to hear for once a view on it other than 0% totally fake or 100% you're an idiot if you don't think it won't completely happen. Well, that's pretty much the thesis of the whole show, is trying to keep an open mind to different perspectives. I also saw someone say in the chat, like, getting the compliments from Andy was such a big compliment. And I totally agree. And I actually do really appreciate his words in the compliments that he gave us here, especially on something that we actually value like that,
No, totally. Yeah. And I think that why we resonated with what he said is that we try to share the same sort of message of like, assume you know nothing, right? Be curious endlessly. One of the main mantras of the show is to stay curious. And so I think he definitely embodies that.
Yep. And then happy birthday to Ben. Yeah, happy belated Ben. Sanko said Billy Carson would be good on your show. That would actually be a really good one. Are you familiar with Billy Carson?
Yeah, I am. He was on top of the world for a little bit, and then this guy who is incredibly well versed within religious literature kind of like really took his thunder away from an impromptu debate that was done on, I believe, some sort of live stream. And yeah,
is it Wesley Huff?
Yes, that sounds right. He's blown up after that. Like that really propelled Wesley into mainstream awareness because he's very, very well versed on religious literature.
Fascinating.
Because with the things with people that say things like Billy, like he talks with absolutes, right? Like he's constantly, he doesn't say like this could be this way. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with just trying to get through a point. And we do that sometimes too, where we're saying things that sound like we know it for sure, but we don't know anything for sure. But he really got huge by that level of conviction that he spoke with these things in, right? It wasn't like, oh, this maybe happened. He's like, this happened. And so then Wesley basically got him slipping on a few things and got him like wrong, and then pulled up the receipts, and that people, and then you know how evil the internet is, man.
Yeah.
Right. Like people dunked on Billy hard. So I'm sure eventually people will forget, but highly entertaining at the very least, Billy's content.
Wow. Yeah. And yeah, so that interview there, that debate had 4.4 million views, which is pretty
The
wild to think
debate?
about. I guess
Yeah,
full unedited, unaltered
yeah, I
debate.
think that's the original source of this.
Mhm.
That's really what snowballed it. And then it got messy between all parties involved after the fact.
Interesting.
Yeah, because Billy was like cooking, man. Like he was on the major podcast that he could possibly go on. I think he even got on Rogan. So he was like on top of the world. And he's talking about stuff for anyone who doesn't know. I should provide context earlier. So he basically talks a lot about ancient literature, myths, etc. But he talks a lot about he talks a lot about myths as if they're fact.
Right.
And so that's partially where people got on him. And then when he recalled things incorrectly based on what the book said, and Wes had the books right there, and then it got people started dunking on him.
Mm. I also see here people were absolutely ragging on the moderator. The most liked comment, it looks like, was, use me as if this moderator was insufferable on a level we can't begin to comprehend button. 42,000 likes.
Yeah.
So I don't know the moderators, but I'm sure he's leveled up since that one.
Man, we gotta, I don't know how you fix it because part of it's just human nature, but on all these platforms, there's just so much incentive to like shit on people or dunk on them. Or like even I tweeted today, or I tweeted yesterday. Right before the show, actually, I just tweeted, Twitter's biggest problem is everyone thinks they are smart and very few people actually are. There are a few things as loud as an insecure intellectual. People don't come here to learn. They come here to feel smart. Repeating a currently held belief is one of the easiest ways to do that. Save your sanity, don't engage. And then a guy tweeted back at me, he's like, yeah, that's you, bro. I'm like, okay, man, I'm not claiming I'm smart. I genuinely don't think I'm smart. I just know I'm endlessly curious. Right. And I think that's like, I've said this in the past, like my whole mantra for a very long time, and this has rubbed people the wrong way, is that I don't think I'm better than anyone, but I don't think anyone's better than me. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. So
Right.
I truly think that a lot of it does come down to work. And I don't think I'm smarter than anyone. I think that if they had to consume the same information that I did, they'd probably come to better conclusions than I did.
Right. Very interesting, man. Yeah, people are
Stormy says, how do you combat mass cynicism? You understand, in my opinion, the source in which it came from. There's nobody who is happy, who's putting a dent in the world, that takes the time to do that. Like Keith, right? How he couldn't even conceive that someone would film someone in a vulnerable state, like taking a pee on the TTC, because in his world that would never be a reality, right? And I think that Keith should be a role model for a lot of people. That's also why I'm excited for this show to grow, so that people can like see that in you a lot, because that shit matters, man. Because you impact the people in your immediate vicinity, and also sometimes it's a lack of education too, right? Where sometimes you have to plant the seed, and this is something I've done a lot in my life, where I'll be like, yo, what you just did there, you may not know this, but that was really mean. Right? And I'll try to do it like after the fact. A lot of people will just try to avoid the conflict, because almost every time I was made the asshole for saying that. Right. So, but I don't care, because I've been the person who was being made fun of or like getting bullied. And so I'm like, I never want to feel like that again. I don't think anyone should feel like that. So I'll pay the social cost of doing that. And if more people did that, I think we'd all just be less pricks.
Love it, man. Yeah. That's definitely something for me. I've always tried to, not always tried to, but I've definitely, as I've gotten older, tried to get better at. And being around you more has already allowed me to see it in my life, of where there's moments to just even also stick up for myself a little bit better, but also to like, just to lean into the understanding, the opportunity for there to be a little bit of friction, but for that to help someone too,
So most problems are created because an uncomfortable situation was avoided. Right? So people are like, in my life will say, oh, Ben, you're very confrontational. I would challenge that greatly, because I just know that I either take the confrontation now at this current standing, or I let it go and it gets so much bigger where there's no chance that we have a relationship. Always, like, there's no such thing as like water under the bridge. Like, of course, when you get to that place and you have the satisfaction or like the conclusion, you get to it. But when you just let it go and you're like, oh, I'll look past it, you build resentment.
Right. Yeah.
So like, I think it's better to be open and honest about how you feel. So that way, because a lot of people think someone's an asshole, but they've never communicated that they make them feel like that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my friends, like they shit on each other so much, and then I'll be like, guys, like, it's fun to have like playful banter, but I think the line should get drawn on things like you can't change. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if I got like for example, like I'm heavier than I normally am. If a buddy were to say, "Oh, Ben, you put on some weight," I'd be like, "That's totally fair." Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if they would be like, I don't know, like I hate you because you're white or whatever, then I'd be like, okay, then now we're no longer friends. But like people do that shit all the time.
Yeah. That's a good one for sure too, to think about line crossing. It's like anything that people can't change for sure.
Also, people, just because it's been done a lot and they're laughing too, doesn't mean it's okay. What other choice did you give them? Right? If you don't laugh, you cry. So eventually, if you still want to be around these people and they're talking shit, then you're going to be like, okay, I guess this is my identity now. And anything you could possibly say about someone negatively, they already know. Right? Like
Maybe.
For the most part, they may be projecting, like trying to push it away, but the short guy knows he's short. The fat person knows they're fat. Right? Like deep down, they know.
Okay, the things that can't be changed. Yes.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
No. The things that can be changed, I think we should definitely do a lot more of that.
More shame.
Yes. Oh, not shame. Education is the word that I like to go to.
Okay.
Or opportunity for education. Ben says, Thomas, Ben, you're cooked, Unk. Yeah. I am 30 now, so I guess I am an Unk. I am cooked.
Oh, man. Yeah, Dave had a good one there.
It's harder. I believe those tensions help build relationships. If positivity is the only way you build a relationship, when negativity comes, it hits harder. Parents have definitely said shit we hate, but we love them all the same. Yeah, I think it's shared struggle, right? And then also open communication off of that is more so what I'm saying. I'm not saying be positive all the time. I just think if you really don't like something, but you don't say it, how do they know that?
Right. Yeah, and it's always delivery too. So as I've started to do this, it's fun because I can deliver things to where I'm not saying anything. I'm capable of that.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I need to use that same ability, but to say the thing, you know what I'm saying, without making them upset.
Totally. You're super good at this already, because you could easily tee them up with questions for them to bring themselves there. That's typically what I try to do, but oftentimes we don't have enough time. If I'm presented with the window of time where I can do that, that's the route I will go to. But oftentimes I know I have 5 minutes, so I have to be an asshole. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think people would benefit from you doing that too, Keith, because you do have a fantastic way of approaching things from all angles. And I don't think that they would leave thinking you're an asshole because you're so good at that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm working on it. There was a really cool opportunity that I had with someone recently, and it was really nice because I was like, no, I need to tell this person like what they're doing, and that it's actually potentially wrong. You know?
Yeah, and I also think because this is kind of building off of what Andreessen said the other day, where like you should not have any introspection. I think that you and I are both very introspective, but I don't think that's an incredibly common trait, especially not with the numbing agent that is now endlessly accessible of the phone, right?
True.
So a lot of these people have not actually even thought through these things that like they may actually be blind to them.
For sure. Yeah, it's a good point. And then the other thing I was gonna say on this is like, I realized that. So I used to, like, for instance, people would like say things to me that I just knew were wrong, or even just like that were not acknowledging that I might have already known something. As an example, is probably the most common thing that would happen.
Okay.
Is like, you're talking to me, like mansplaining something to me or whatever, like explaining something that, like, brother,
I know this.
Yeah, you're way out of your league here. And what I would do is just not say anything.
Yeah.
And just let it be. Because I'm just like, well, this person won't get anything that I have to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's like, maybe I could help that person, you know, like to help them understand that you are talking to someone who knows. And because you're not like communicating properly, you're not getting any information from me that would actually help you.
I send them a video. So I don't have to say anything. Because then if they don't watch it, I know I'm wasting my time. If they do watch it, then I got to the end result without being the asshole. So I'll usually go through my Rolodex of videos that are worth sending for the specific circumstance, and I'll send it over.
Love it, man. There was a couple more comments over here as well on the last episode. Ben, you're the GOAT.
Way too generous. You're the GOAT.
Um, oh yeah, and like the hyping feature, I guess we're seeing that it potentially isn't always there.
Yeah, it seems like they're split testing it, and that's very common occurrence across all social media platforms. Is they're constantly conducting split tests to see how it's used, seeing how it's impacting the algorithm, and to make a decision if it becomes more of a constant feature. So if you do ever see the hype feature, definitely hype our stuff if you feel so inclined. It does help the content a lot.
Hype it up.
And whenever they give those customer satisfaction things or viewer satisfaction things, they really do play a very strong weight. So we talked about the surveys before, and the liking. Like when you guys come in, why I ask for you guys to like is because it's like so directly correlated to how far it gets pushed. Like when I ask for the like and a few of you like it, we instantly get pushed to like 10, 20 more people.
And for the content that we're doing, because it's so long, guys, like all of these little micro signals makes such a big difference.
Everything, because we are fighting against deep rooted relationships that people have with our people in the same like zone, right?
Yeah.
And so it's such a longer grind. That's why when you look at Keith's channel, it's so big and it will keep getting bigger and bigger way faster than this, because it's a direct, simple yes or no question. Like, do I care about money and the topics in which he's covering? Yes. Right? I'm in. We require so many more yeses before they come into the ecosystem.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And Keith's also a very good creator too. I'm not taking that away from him at all. To get what he's done is amazing.
No, but for sure, it's a different game being played. Matthew, what up, man? We appreciate you. He said, Ben must be more of a cat person at 207:14. Let me play it back real quick because I thought this was, I didn't realize what was happening.
Right. I'm sure the dog is I'm sure it's real. I'm really happy the dog is healthy. That's amazing. But like, think of the stakes here. The ChatGPT dog.
Yeah. So Ben was responding to this this guy that like cured his dog of cancer by using ChatGPT to like fix the sequencing or whatever. And Ben was being a little bit skeptical about it. So
yeah, just simply because the stakes involved of it all. But again, I'm very hopeful that is 100% real, and it's amazing that he did that, and the dog is healthy.
That was a really good comment.
And then
hilarious. And you
responded too. And I would say I'm actually more of a dog person. I do have cats, but that's only because I live in such a small space that it would be mean to have a dog.
That's fair. That's fair. That's interesting. I definitely wondered that about you because, you know, it says a lot about you to have cats, especially multiple cats.
I wouldn't have normally, like, if you had to talk to me even 6 years ago, I would have said I'm never getting a cat. But then I was just in such a bad way from my surgeries where I was like, I need something here to like make me not want to leave. And so I got a cat because I was like, if I have a cat, I'll take care of it and then whatever. And then when I got the one cat, it was such a demon that I'm like, I need to get another one so they play and tire each other out. And so then that's how I got the two cats. And I love them.
They are both your cats.
They are both my cats.
Wow, guys. These are both Ben's cats. They're not his girlfriend's cats.
But if I do get to a point where I can have a bigger space, I would totally get a dog, but only if I can give it a really good life.
That's very thoughtful. It's very empathetic of you.
Well, I grew up with animals, so yeah. Did you grow up with any animals?
Nope.
Okay, so would you
jerk?
That's crazy. You're not a jerk at all. Would you ever get a dog?
I'd have to have
a partner that wants it.
I'd have to have a kid or something. Like I just because otherwise I basically have a kid. You know
dude, a dog is a different beast.
Yeah.
Like a dog, it's the commitment of a baby to a degree, especially when they're young. Whereas the cats, it's awesome, man. Like I could leave for a day, no problem.
The one thing that I think would be the reason also if I have a kid, I would be more likely to get a dog or something is because one of the things that I never experienced in my life because I didn't have dogs or anything like that was like, this is a crazy thing to say, but I want to hear what you think. Like I never experienced death close to me.
Oh, that's totally fair.
And I feel like that'd be something good for a kid to have to, or to be able to go through at a younger age. I
actually think you're right because I remember losing my first dog, Jody, and it was such a hard experience because I hadn't gone through that either. But at a very young age, I was forced to grasp the concept that like time is fleeting and life is fleeting. And so every time I'd leave the house, when she got to a point where my mom held on to her for too long, like she could barely move and she was barely there. But every time I leave the house, I'd give her 10 kisses and say, bye, I love you. Because I grasped the concept. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That was maybe like 10 or 12. So I think that's actually very great thinking because that would have had a positive impact on my ability to deal with grief. And I didn't even really realize that.
So Yeah, man, that's the one thing that comes to my mind.
I think you'd love a dog though, man.
So somebody said I seem like a bird guy. What does that even mean?
You know, birds. If you love birds, that's awesome. But birds are like a very like wild pet, man, because they're just it's so unique, and if you let them fly around, like they poo everywhere and stuff.
Oof. Yeah, that would also be a tough one. I have this video on my phone of a bird that I was around in Bali, and this was my first time being like, I guess it wasn't in the wild, it was like at a resort, but there was a parrot of some sort,
Parrots are cool.
and he
They
was
live a
talking
long
to
time.
us. He was saying, "Good morning."
Wow, that's the first that you've seen something like that.
Yeah, and the thing was too is it just caught me off guard because, like, I mean, I'm not at a zoo, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just living my life, and I'm like hearing someone say "good morning" like legit, and I'm like, "Yo, what is going on?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
at the pool hearing this. Like,
It's
what-
totally, yeah, it's definitely, it's a different thing for sure. And Brandon says, I can see Ben having a parrot. I would never get a pet bird. I would never get a pet bird. They live a long time, man.
That's wild, man.
Like you have to leave that thing in your will.
Keith is a reptile guy for sure.
I had reptiles growing up.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you had something. You had something weird growing up.
Bro, I had a newt. You ever heard of that?
No.
Bro, it's crazy. And then when my newt died, because my dad was sad for me, he got me a turtle. Because I'm like, turtles are cool. I go to the pet store, I pick out all of the gear, and I'm like 7, maybe 8. This is a newt. I named him Nudie. As you can see, I've been a creative mind for a very long time. And so I get the turtle. I'm at the pet store, and there's one that's like upside down, clearly sick, not doing well. So I point to the other one that's very active and playful, and the pet owner or the pet store guy grabs the one that's dying, puts it in the thing, and then my dad's like, "Oh, whatever, they're all the same." And then it died like 2 weeks later. My dad blamed me. He's like, "You're not getting another one." So I had a turtle for like literally 2 weeks.
Dang.
Yeah. So RIP to that turtle, but it wasn't my fault, man. That thing was already going.
That's crazy, man. Ooh, Thomas, that's a crazy one. He said Ben probably had pet rats.
I never had pet rats, but
Is that a thing? No.
yeah. People love rats, man.
People have rats?
Yeah, totally.
I
They're
thought you dissect rats.
well, that's they're used for that too. But a lot of people really like rats. They're quite smart, and apparently pretty affectionate. A friend of mine in high school, she had 2 rats.
They don't bite you?
I am sure some do, but like anything, when I first got my cat, it bit, like playfully, and then I taught it, don't bite, because he was found outside, and so who knows how much socialization he got, my cat, and so I had to teach him not to bite me.
Fascinating, man. I didn't know cats would bite, honestly.
For
No,
my
it's
cat, it's more of like a sensory thing, like it's how he plays,
Mm.
and so he doesn't actually try to hurt you. He just like likes biting stuff. Like he won't play unless there's something he can bite.
Interesting.
It's super weird, bro. Like whenever I get these toys, if I don't factor in the fact that he wants to be stimulated in multiple ways, he won't play with it.
Mm.
Yeah, he's a bit of a diva that way.
So interesting, man.
People dissect frogs. They dissect mice too, I think, right? Or
Yeah.
rats, and they definitely use them in studies a ton.
Right.
See, Thomas had rats. See,
Okay.
I've heard they're good pets. My mom, I don't know if she'd let me have one, but they seem cool. I also had pet toads at one point. Pet toads were crazy.
A toad?
Yeah, so I had a pet toad that I found when it was like a penny toad. It was like this little guy, and I caught it at my grandparents' place, and I'm like, "Mom, can I keep this as a pet?" I think she probably thought I would die or I would kill it. So she's like, "Yes." And then I fed it and I took super good care of it. It got friggin' huge, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and then eventually my mom's like, "We got to get rid of this thing." And so we let it go at my grandparents, and like they definitely friggin' lied to me. They're like, "We see him all the time." I'm like, "That thing is dead for sure." I was like, "You're full of shit, Grandma." Like, I know that thing's dead. I've been hand feeding him worms for like 5 years.
Right. Dang, dude.
Rat brains are similar to human brains. I've heard something like that. It's not why they get used in studies a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Anything else from the chat that you guys want to chop it up before we wrap up? Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Awesome episode. Definitely go show him some love. And yeah, I think the core theme of this is just focus on what you can control, right? And try to be around positive things when you can. Keith, owning a pet gives you perspective. The psychology of domesticated animals is fascinating. Yeah, it really is. I also saw on Twitter the other day that apparently gray aliens don't like cats. So apparently my cats are protecting me from aliens too.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw
Who
that on
would have
Twitter.
thought?
Cats do see weird shit. So like I wouldn't be surprised if they could see like interdimensional beings.
If they could see the grays.
Totally. Man, they every so often my cat will just be staring at something that's not there. I'm like, this shit's weird. Maybe scaring them away.
That's nutty. You guys have the illest conversations. Thanks, man. We appreciate you pulling up. Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely contributed to this piece of it. I wasn't expecting so much animal talk. That's awesome.
No, you guys are the why we do this. It's so much more fun. And some conversation with y'all. There was a request again for the Discord. We've had that request a ton. I was just saying to Keith that we had somebody reach out to us, potentially going to help us flesh that out. We want to do all the things, guys, and we talk about it all the time. We just don't want to do anything shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to do something half-assed where you get in there and you get a bad taste in your mouth, like every NFT project ever. So we want to make sure it's something that can have an ecosystem. And yeah. Ben, outside of social media, what's an obscure hobby you've got? Man, I learn stuff like all the time. If I'm not working on an active task, I'm trying to accumulate data points to make better decisions. I'm very, very, very lucky where my natural aptitudes and wants / things I find fun are rewarded in the marketplace. Like that's just pure luck, right? Like I was wanting to sell things and build things from like such a young age, where I was just lucky that the stuff that I found fun happened to be you could make money from it.
That's awesome, man.
Do you have any obscure hobbies?
Well, it's just my music stuff. I was just directly like, you don't make money from that.
you will eventually, though.
For sure.
You definitely will.
Yeah.
There's no way you won't.
I was talking to someone.
So
probably on the movie set. What would you see?
They're saying create our own, and that's something that we absolutely could do. So for more context, like I have a bunch of engineers that work with me, and so we absolutely could build something like that. It's just a cost benefit analysis, right? Like it'd be a lot of time and effort for me. And is that the kind of business that I want to run? Definitely not. So we would probably use a third-party tool.
The reason too is because I saw this the other day as well. Discord is about to start forcing people to verify their ID.
That's another thing I saw. So
if
it gets to that point where it's too crazy, I would consider making something. Just don't expect it to be awesome. is what I would say, right? Because I don't want to spend a lot of time and money and resources if it's just us using it. But there could be a demand for that. So
yeah,
we'll definitely chew on it. But the Rebel said, make sure the onboarding for the NFT is easy because I'm interested and want to share it with my community as well. I will try to make it as simple as we possibly can. I've been speaking with my devs about how we're going to logistically handle that. Right now, we're fletching out like how many can each person get, and like the cost to mint, all that stuff. So still probably, it's just not a massive priority for me right now because the show is more important, but we'll eventually get to those digital collectibles at some point.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was going to say how I think it was on the movie set or something. I was talking to somebody about music. Yeah, that's what it was. And I was like, I spent my whole life trying to make money so that I could make music again. Because I learned very quickly that making music wasn't going to make me money.
That'll be a very cool full circle moment when you're making money from your music.
For sure, man. Someone asked, Keith, do you use Ableton, bro? I don't actually. I use FL, the dirty FL Studio. What did you say?
Is that music software?
Yeah, it's a digital audio workstation, or DAW.
Super cool, man. So would you want like a physical space to do this stuff?
Dude, it's crazy because so I talked to this awesome person who reached out to me. They booked a call with me, and she was like,
excuse me,
telling me how she like created her life and like the people that she was around that were doing those things as well. And she was like, you know, obviously like visualization techniques, but also like writing it down like every day in the morning, whatever. And I've been trying to figure out what does that life look like? And then one day I was in the shower couple days ago, and I had the vision. I was like, I want to wake up on my boat
You want a boat?
with a studio in it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that could be a whole business too, honestly. I kind
Yeah.
of shouldn't have been putting this out there like that because I haven't seen anyone do anything like that. But I think that'd be a sick business because you could charge crazy premiums per hour of a studio like that if it's really just you're
On a
running a
boat.
boat.
Yeah, it's a flex for sure. And people love novelty. So I think that could absolutely be something. So then you need like a yacht then, no?
Oh yeah.
Cool. Can I come
But
on
it's
your yacht?
finance. It's finance with the business.
Say no more. I could see it. That'd be super, super cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure, brother.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, that's super dope. And I think also another thing that I want to stress with this show is that whenever you have a dream or something that you want, like the people around you typically will say like why it can't work, because that's happened to them a bunch of times too, right? When they've had something, they say like, oh, you can't do this. But I love that you want to have a yacht studio like that. That's so badass, man. And I also think that with the tools that we have access to between the internet and AI, what's possible is becoming more and more up to you.
100%, man.
Like so many things that I'm able to do now, it's like I feel so lucky and blessed. The world has become so suited towards my natural skill set of like ideas because I'm able to iterate on them so fast now with AI, right? And also take on different challenges to grow the business into something that I know I couldn't have done myself without these tools. So it's definitely super cool. Take advantage, guys.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, but Andy George said I got a degree for record engineering, and after interning found it was not the life I wanted. You never know how it's gonna work out. Yeah, man.
Totally. That's also
Sure.
timeless advice too, where if you want, just because you started something doesn't mean you got to stick with it forever. I think sunk cost is a big thing that's ruling a lot of people's lives. And if you really get to the root of why there's sunk costs, most of it is social cost, right? It's more so they're worried about being associated with the outcome socially, right? Like, oh, he went to school for this and he's not doing that. Like that's seen as bad. Bro's going to make yacht house. That's dope. When do we get to see your music on stream, man? Why are you gatekeeping?
You know, it's funny because I've actually got some pieces that if people really went down my content rabbit hole, actually, no, it's not out yet. That's actually false. But some of my content that I'm putting out will have my music in it. So that's exciting. But
dude, I'm so excited because whenever I talk to Keith, like it's so obvious that like everyone has like something that they've loved, right? And like music is clearly that thing for you. So one of the things that I'm most excited for is that when businesses for you get to a point where you can actually start dedicating time towards that, like I'm just excited to watch that because I think that'll be so fucking cool.
Thanks, man.
Of course.
Yeah. My Bond video has my music in it. It's very low, but technically, and it's crazy, dude, because I so intentionally like made sure that video had my music in it. And so now that video has over 1 million views, right? Like technically through a roundabout way, which is a part of kind of how I see my music career continuing to unfold. I've got 1 million plays on a song. You know what
That's
I mean?
so badass. And did you give yourself credit in the description?
No, actually, I haven't done that. No. It's just there. It's just what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what I care. I just want like people to hear my sounds, you know?
Totally. Well, I should still get to hear it. You've never sent me a video, any of your music ever. You wouldn't even tell me the name of your stuff.
I gotta see what's out there, man, because there was one video that was out there that was pretty dope. It was a video that someone made to my song, but I think it's gone now, and it's so frustrating because it was like back when I was 16 years old, and it's like, you know, on timestamped on YouTube, but it's not there anymore. So I'm like, dang, that sucks.
Whenever you talk about this stuff, I always think about the quote from your football coach: "Stick to making beats, son."
Yes, man. Yeah, man. Crazy stuff.
Whereas football was like my version of your music. Like I loved that so much. That was like my thing for a very long time.
Word, man. And so you still get to only through watching the sport, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My highlight tape from high school is on the internet. So if people didn't know
hype.
Megan, they
Hype.
could find that. But yeah, it's I love that a lot, and that was such a big pivotal role in my life. And I think pro football, even though I still love it, it's definitely a thing where I love the people around it more, because it does seem like a lot of it is BS, and the gambling stuff just makes it even more like that. But yeah, I think that football taught me so many things about life and people and myself. And so having a passion like that is so important. Obviously, that was for music. I think you can find those lessons through anything that you're deeply passionate about. That's like a competitive pursuit in some regard. You know what I mean?
For sure, man. I'm sitting here trying to find your highlight tape.
I think you just type in Ben Levitt football, you'll find me.
Is it on Huddle?
No, it's on YouTube. I edited it during COVID. I had it for years, and then I was like, you know what? We got so much time on our hands. I may as well put this thing together, because I didn't actually do it when I was in high school, because video editing was so much harder at that time. But
I found it.
Yeah, man. No, I was pretty good at football, man. Obviously, I'm in Canada, so like you guys are way better than we are. But I was a small school. I would have been better than a lot of people on it. But like you can't be as good. You got to be way better, and that was never going to happen for me from being from Canada as especially a white dude from Canada. Like I don't got the speed, so they ain't coming for me. I definitely wasn't slow, but I wasn't like super fast.
Mm. Fair. And like you were saying before, I feel like it's just, you could be the best player in certain places, and
it's politics
still not
too.
Get picked up.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. I will say that they realize there's a lot more talent here, so they're coming here a lot more. But at the time when I was there was just no shot. Like I would have had to do a lot of things that I just didn't do looking back on it. But yeah, everything happens for a reason. I'm very grateful that injuries took me away from football, because had it not, I probably would still be trying. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Because when you love something like that, like you've got to be stripped away. And it feels like the universe kind of did that to me with all my injuries, because I kept going back, man.
That's a crazy way to think about it, but it makes sense, dude.
Yeah, man. But anything else from you, Keith?
Nothing else from me, man.
Cool. Well, should we show them Spotify and ask for some?
Oh yeah, that's a given, folks. I'll just talk about music. How could I forget? We are on Spotify, ladies and gentlemen, and we have, since last time, we got a couple of you guys to come through and give us a review, but we need you to do it again. And if you haven't already, we need you to come through. So the link is in the description to the Spotify. We're Memes and Markets over there. Give it a quick listen. In case you haven't listened to anything, it'll make you listen before you can leave a review. Hit the play button, let it scroll, maybe go back to an episode you haven't heard yet. And then when it lets you, give us a review. We really appreciate it. It actually also helps a ton with visibility on this platform. We don't have any natural discoverability unless you guys are coming to help us do that.
Yeah, it's really hard to grow from zero there. So what gets pushed is typically what's getting rated. So that would help us out so much. And I know it's annoying to do, but if we've ever done stuff for you, it would mean the world to us for you to do that when you have the time. And yeah. And so Mr. Green said, or M Green said, can y'all talk about the SEC naming some digital assets as commodities? That was if it's fractionalized, right?
No, they just actually gave a full list of specific cryptos that they think are commodities now. I can rattle off because I have a piece on my computer here. So yeah, the SEC, my whole video that I put out today was about that. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. But I might have lost it, but it's like Aptos, Avalanche, Bitcoin Cash, Cardano, Chainlink, Dogecoin, Ether, Hedera, Litecoin, Polkadot, Shiba, Solana, Stellar, Tezos, and XRP.
Lorenzo, yeah, we see your comments all the time, and we appreciate them tremendously. I always try to reply to all the ones that I can, so thank you. We appreciate your support all the time. You're a very valued member of the community, and we appreciate all the positivity you bring.
Yes, sir. We see you, man.
So with them doing that, do you think that makes it more likely that we get things over the finish line for the legislation?
I guess it also just means that it's not as important for those projects.
Very true.
But this is what, Charles was saying is like, guys, let's not just grandfather these projects. What I think is fascinating is that there's a nice mix of stuff in there, and like, how did they come to the conclusion of these specific blockchains?
That's what I was about to ask you next.
Like, what?
Thomas says, "Don't worry, Ben Cardano's on there." Yeah, if we see it, Cardano's is in a bad way, man. Like, if they don't get their stuff sorted pretty quickly, so much amazing work and tech could be squandered. But like, they kind of do it to themselves, man. Like, the infighting amongst the community, and like, I literally reached out to Charles trying to help him for free, and they didn't even reply.
Wow.
Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
What are you gonna do, man? I literally I gave them free consulting. I recorded a full-on thing for like their head of media, acted on none of it, didn't even reply. And then after Charles came on, I reached out to him directly. I was like, man, this could have like 10x the views if you change the title to just this. You don't even need to change the thumbnail. Didn't do it, didn't reply.
Wow.
So it's like, and when the show blows up, they'll be like, fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Because it's also not like the things that you're going to be suggesting aren't. Well, it's in a way, it's like, it's obvious. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's obvious that it could improve what they're doing.
And it's no additional work or even change in their efforts.
Right.
And at least I'll do it for you for free for a few months until you guys see that it works, and then we can talk payment.
Right.
I do this for an agency. Like, this is what I do every day for some of the biggest podcasts in the world, and they didn't even reply, man. So at that point, I've been a very long supporter of this technology and movement for a very long time. And even now I'm like, I don't know, like, whatever you end up with is kind of on you, man. As a member of your community, I tried to help for free.
Right.
So at that point, I'm a free agent.
Yeah. Because that stuff, like those decisions that are being made or indecisions that are being made, it rattles through everything.
Totally.
I was thinking about, like, I watched, you sent me the Mark Andreessen thing where they're talking about their media strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And like, the thing that came to my head throughout listening to that for whatever reason was like, A16Z, everything that they put out is pristine.
Mm.
Everything, their website looks amazing, but guess what? They're not advertising to people. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need me to see that they have a nice website. No, they have a nice freaking website because it's a part of the entire organization.
It's the experience.
The whole thing has to be like that. It has to be like that. Otherwise, the person who does have millions of dollars is not going to look at it that way. Totally. And so, anyways.
No, I agree. Yeah. And I, like I said, we had them as a client for like, I think it was a 5 or 6 month span. They get there because they have a shitload of money too, though, Keith. Like, there's so many people touching everything. So they're able to maintain that kind of quality standard. But I totally agree with what you're saying. There's not such a high leverage outcome. But then, and that was fascinating too, that episode. But someone said Charles Hoskinson needs to retire, but his arrogance won't let him. He's such a buzzkill and a drag on that company. I don't agree with that at all. I think that I still really like Charles, and I think that his philosophy is one of the few bright spots that are there. But I've seen like a lot of people in life where, like, if like the not replying to me thing, it's a lot like people who, I don't know how to say this. Let me think on this more, because I don't know how to say this properly and I don't want to offend anyone. But a lot of people, like, they stop themselves from getting what they say they want. Right? Like they're saying, they're like, again, I'm a bottom feeder. I'm not important. But like, they've come out publicly and been like, okay, messaging is so important. We're going to be focusing on this. If that was my general like KPI, key performance indicator, I'd be seeing every email that came through if there's an opportunity to help me with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also just, it's always interesting because it's always both sides of it. Like, someone, for instance, was saying, they sent us an email, we didn't respond, right?
Totally fair.
And it's like, it's always this game of what, like these guys don't know who we are, right? And so they don't know not just like who we are, like, no, like, but what we do, or what
I explained all that
doing.
though.
And some people will get it and some people won't.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And so
no, and everyone's just doing their job. And the other incentive structure that's the problem that I've run into while running my agency is almost every person where we go into, they have someone's job who would potentially be compromised by my involvement.
Right.
And so then now that creates an incentive structure problem where they don't want me around. They're not sharing that email. They're like, screw that. This guy may take my job. Or like, even though I would never try to ever do that, but like, that's where their mind goes. The amount of uphill battles I've had to fight with to like do my own job because of people trying to save theirs. It's a real thing. And I can't blame them for that. Of course, I'm some random guy off the street and he's thinking about his family. You know what I'm saying? I get it.
Yep. So,
cool.
That too.
Yeah, but we'll see. I think that I'm hopeful that their messaging gets sorted and people start rallying behind the mission of Cardano and other, really just crypto in general. It's pretty dead and people are sad right now.
Facts.
So hopefully we get some good news here soon. We've been getting our asses kicked for a very long time.
No doubt.
Dope. Well, that's all for me. Anything else, Keith?
That's it, man.
Damn, we almost 4 hours. So apologies for this being so long, guys. The first half went longer than we normally do. And Andy was generous with his time. So we were definitely going to take him up on that. But we appreciate you guys watching tremendously. We will definitely see all of you guys on Tuesday. I don't know if we have a guest scheduled. And as for the email things, like when you guys have something for us, like don't get discouraged if we don't reply right away. And also what I will say too is that like, and I learned this because I was the person trying to get someone's attention. You got to make it a no-brainer for people, right? Like you can't say, here's how I'm going to provide value to you. You show, right? Because enough people have reached out to me over the years, especially when I was creating a lot more frequently. And anybody who like showed me, I would give them an opportunity right away. But if you're saying like, if you're trying to like create a job for yourself, it's going to create work for me, the answer is going to be no, or I'm just going to ignore it. There's too many other things going on.
Exactly. It's really just a bandwidth thing, like mental capacity alone. It's like, having direct forward movement steps as well is usually super helpful. Like this is the next thing, not like me having to come together and figure out what do I even say to this? You know what I mean?
100%. Doing the thinking for me is very, very important. And then also illustrating the fact that you can do this. Because anybody that we bring on, we're already working on so many other things that like anytime where I'm training people, it's just like, it just takes so much time and bandwidth from me and same with Keith, right? So that's a big thing too.
Yeah.
Definitely keep shooting a shot, keep cold emailing with anyone else.
So the thing that I was bringing up earlier, where I had a chance to like basically put someone, like correct someone, was about this exact thing where it was like, oh, I emailed you this and you didn't respond. And that showed your character.
That's crazy shit.
And I was like, wait a minute, like you've lost your mind, bro. Like,
that happens all the time.
You need to like, this is not what that is. And me not responding to you immediately to your request does not have anything to do with my character, sir.
No. Don't get angry, get better. Yeah. That's really what it is. Because if it was so glaringly obvious that I should reply to you, you're going to get more yeses than nos when you get to that point. Of course, there'll be people that you fall through the cracks and all that stuff. But whenever I got rejected or ignored, I'm just like, okay, I didn't do a good enough job here. Where's the data point that I can change the approach next time? And that's why I've gotten really good at finding my way to people, was from hundreds of messages going ignored.
Love it, man.
That's it, man.
So yeah, shoot a shot. Like
keep shooting them.
Keep going.
Totally. But also, yeah, again, come to it with how you're going to help them when you shoot that shot. But that's all for me. Anything else, Keith, or should we wrap up?
That's it, folks.
Cool. Appreciate all y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll see all of you guys on Tuesday.
Peace, love, and prosperity, y'all.
Cheers, guys.
Day of your life.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. And where's the playing?